Hello, you are listening to Trump Republic Radio. It is July 16th, 2017. I'm your host, Enzo Quesada, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Bobby Hester.
Hello, everyone.
And this week we got on the show, I guess we've had on multiple times now. He wants to be referred to as the Sultan of South Covfefestan, so I made sure to reference that. But we have on Cameron Cutrone.
Hey, thanks for having me back. Thank you for recognizing me as the Sultan of South Covfefestan.
I wouldn't forget royalty.
Thank you.
But yeah, before we begin the show, just want to mention that we now take PayPal donations. We're going to be reading out the donations on the show. We don't have to say your name if you don't want to. But the PayPal is paypal.me/Trump Republic Radio. It's also going to be the description on this episode. If you want to bribe us to do a specific midweek show, send us a donation and tell us what to do. I am not above taking money to do this. And we're also another thing I just wanted to show for a second. We're looking to do a midweek show on the Russian narrative, the whole Russian conspiracy, since it's been going on since over a year now, a year and a half almost. So we're going to break that down. I know we didn't do a midweek show this last week. Sorry about that. We were busy filming the thing. But anything else before we get into the show?
If you just want to get in contact with us also, our email is trumprepublicradio@gmail.com. So feel free to send us any comments, questions, concerns that you have there.
Yeah, it'd be good to get some feedback on the show. Tell us where we're messing up. Let's get into what's happening this week in the news, though. So the first thing that we want to go over was this Donald Trump Jr. stuff. You want to talk some about that, Bobby?
Yeah, so this is something that's really come up over the last week or so, and it's the fact that Donald Trump Jr., back last year during the campaign, met with a Russian lawyer, or as a Russian government attorney, to try to dig up some dirt on Hillary Clinton, and all this information came out, and it got to the point where Donald Trump Jr. even released his own emails, pictures of them on Twitter, to prove that he did nothing wrong. But even then, people say that it's borderline treason. He's meeting with the Russians. There's your clear collusion. But
hostile foreign
power, governments.
What do they call it? Yeah.
But what we wanted to go into, obviously, because that's really the biggest story that's been talking
Sadly,
about everything.
it shouldn't be, but
it shouldn't be. And he did absolutely nothing wrong. And we wanted to start the show by going through 5 main points that say why he didn't do anything wrong. This is from the Daily Wire, so we're reading almost directly from that. I'm just going to go kind of point through point real quick. The first off, it is not a crime to hear about damaging information on a political opponent, even if it's from a foreign government.
Yes.
Now, that's what the whole point of his meeting was, that because he was trying to dig up dirt on Hillary Clinton, and the person he was meeting with said, I've got potentially damaging info on Hillary Clinton, so he wanted that. So it is not illegal to hear about damaging information, even if it's from someone from a foreign government.
That's just politics.
Yeah, that is politics. That's the way we've been doing it. The Clinton government even did it. We're going to get to that in a few minutes, I think, with the Ukrainian stuff. But, Trump Jr. did nothing wrong there. And number 2, it's not clear that Trump Jr. actually received any noteworthy information on Clinton from the Russian government attorney. And we actually have a second article here from NBC News, where the Russian lawyer, her name is Veselnitskaya, she even said that after the meeting, she didn't give Trump Jr. any information. So we have 2, points right there. Even after all that, he didn't even get any information from her. She didn't even have any. So, you can say, okay, there was intent to receive, but he still didn't receive anything. And he didn't give her anything in response to it. So there really was no, back and forth. But the third point we have is the meeting didn't seem to be related to the hacking and leaking of emails from the DNC and Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, John Podesta. And that's actually pretty true, because when they met, the main point that they actually talked about in the meeting was talking about Russian children being adopted into the U.S., because that program shut down several years ago, and they wanted to get it started again. And that was the whole purpose of the meeting, was to talk about that. So the meeting itself, although he wanted to talk about and receive damaging information, that wasn't the only point of the meeting. It was to discuss legitimate businesses. And number 4, some people are suggesting that Donald Trump Jr. may have violated campaign finance law with the meeting, but he didn't. Now, the definition of the 1990 FEC, Finance Act that they said was that it's illegal to solicit, quote, anything of value from a foreign national. Now, the definition of anything of value, quote unquote, is very, very vague. But even then, we have you have them saying they didn't actually give him anything. He didn't give them anything. So there was no solicitation going on there. If anything, it would have been information given completely out of free will of this lawyer. But there was nothing there. And finally, the last one was, if what Trump Jr. did was illegal, then so was Hillary Clinton allies working with the Ukrainian government for anti-Trump research. And I think we're
going to get into that later.
We have an article about that later.
Yeah.
But the Hillary Clinton campaign did the exact same thing with the Ukrainians to try to dig up anti-Trump research. So if you're complaining that Trump Jr. did this, you should, your complaints are in a completely one-sided affair. You have to look at this objectively from both sides. So just overall in general, Trump Jr. did nothing wrong. There was no quid pro quo. He didn't receive anything. He didn't give anything. Even if he did, it's not illegal to try to do what he did. But that's what we just wanted to open up the story by talking about.
And, this meeting didn't win Donald Trump the presidency. It's so crazy at this point. The second that anyone in the Trump administration talks to someone that's Russian, that's reason to believe that we're being controlled by the Russians at this point. Yeah, people are Russian. There's millions of people that are Russian. And he met with someone that's Russian, and she said that she had stuff on Hillary Clinton. So, why wouldn't he listen? Okay, he's running a campaign against them.
I saw a great article in The Intercept recently where several Russian intellectuals who are granted they're anti-Putin, but they were actually saying the United States is starting to look ridiculous with how far they're trying to stick to this narrative. It actually hurts when you focus on something that is so illusory. It takes away from real problems going on in Russia that they're trying to draw attention to. So, it's not just some sort of talking point that doesn't hurt anybody. It actually does, in some very real ways, take away from people trying to do good work in Russia.
And just this Russian narrative has been such a drain on the Trump administration. We always have to keep on talking about this all the time. And this is something, it seemed like it died a couple weeks ago. I forgot what happened that made it die so much. Do you remember, Bobby?
Well, it was after the Comey hearing.
Yeah, the Comey hearing is when it died.
There.
And they just bring the stuff, big coincidence, right after Trump has a very successful meeting with Vladimir Putin. We're not allowed to have good relations with Russia. The powers that be don't want that to happen. So all of a sudden, we got a new Russian conspiracy thing that's going to it's going to fire up the emotions of the American public that's already been feeding off this Russia stuff for over a year now. I mean, if you're convinced of this Russia stuff, there's nothing I can say to you at this point that's going to change your mind. It's purely emotional, which, most of politics are. But
it's starting to reach pathological proportions, and it does very much seem like people are hurting, and they're taking their anger out and misplacing their blame about the last election. They don't want to think it has anything to do with the fact that they had a horrible candidate, or that they might have actually sabotaged a candidate who was doing better than the establishment candidate. And in fact, I think that's where a lot of this started, is that it wasn't so much that it was leaked that the DNC staffers were disgruntled over the nomination being stolen from Bernie, but they made it about the fact that somebody stole information, and they tried to pin it to somebody. Almost like when Snowden came out with something, or when Private Manning came out with something, they didn't want to discuss what it was that came out. They were too hung up on where did people get this from, or how they got this information, or who they gave this information to. They didn't want to talk about the information, you know.
Yeah, I'm so fed up with the Russophobia in this country. Like, I am definitely not an anti-Russia person. I want to have good relations with Russia. That's one of the reasons why I voted for Donald Trump. And look at what happened last week with the G20 meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. They negotiated a ceasefire in southwest Syria. You know, we can do really good things if we stop trying to push this narrative. If we stop trying to get the entire American public to hate Russia for some reason. I don't understand why I'm supposed to see them as an enemy, okay? It doesn't make sense at all.
Yes, they had a really good, productive meeting. And I can't believe people would just hate to see that happen.
I mean, I love to see that happen. But, you know, there's one last thing with this whole Russian lawyer story that we wanted to cover. And that's information came out that said that one of the people that was at that meeting, along with Trump Jr. and the Russian lawyer, was Paul Manafort. And we all remember who Paul Manafort is, right?
He's one of Trump's campaign managers. I believe he was the second one. Corey Lewandowski was the first, and Steve Bannon was the third.
Right. And information has come out that has been proven that Loretta Lynch ordered Paul Manafort's phone to be tapped during that meeting. And that directly came from her as part of a FISA warrant to wiretap the phones of the Trump campaign. Now, remember when Trump tweeted and said that, Trump Tower was bugged, everyone said, you have no evidence for this, you're lying. And then the information did come out that, his campaign was being wiretapped by the Obama administration, specifically, the DOJ. And now you find out this, and this was confirmed by Fusion GPS employee Rinat Akhmenishtin. And Fusion GPS, if you remember, was one of the companies behind the fake Russian dossier, golden showers thing that they tried to get with Trump. That was the company that was behind that. Obviously, that thing's been since disproven so many times. But you have one of the people that worked at that company has now said that Loretta Lynch ordered Paul Manafort's phone to be wiretapped during that meeting.
And she's going to testify in front of the Senate soon, isn't she?
I know
she's under investigation. So, this stuff, it kind of all comes back together at different weird intersections.
And not only that, but, that Russian lawyer, she had her visa back in, I think this was back in 2015 when she tried to come to the U.S. Her visa was denied. She tried again in 2016, and the Obama administration gave her permission under, quote, extraordinary circumstances to come into the U.S. And now you find out that Loretta Lynch was bugging, Paul Manafort's phone during the meeting. A lot of people do believe that,
this
was a setup to try to get the Trump campaign. And actually, that there's actually a lot of, not necessarily evidence, but there's a lot of meat to that. Because if you read some of the emails that were in that chain that Donald Trump Jr. released, if you look at it, the way that the people he was talking to were describing this, they were using a lot of key buzzwords that, the Obama administration and the DOJ would have used to flag emails of potential, Russian things that are going on.
Collusion or something.
Yeah, collusion to try to pin that. Places where, a sentence that might have been like, next week we're meeting with the lawyer would say, next week on Wednesday at Trump Tower, we are meeting with the Russian lawyer from Moscow who wants to talk about the Russian government's...
Because that's how people talk.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really, really weird sentences. But if you look at some of the government's buzzword lists that they use to scan for stuff in emails, it's all there, every single email. So there's a lot of meat to that story that this thing might have potentially been a setup. And there's even pictures that were released of that exact same Russian lawyer back several years ago with John McCain and other people from Congress.
With Hillary Clinton, I believe there's a photo.
She was well known to these people. They knew who she was.
She's a Washington, D.C. lobbyist.
Yeah, she is a pro-Russia lobbyist in Washington, D.C. It's not like she was some random person from Russia that, oh, we got in contact, we're going to fly him over here and talk to them. No, this was some well-known person who knew the inside information.
It wasn't some old cigarette-smoking, trench coat-wearing KGB guy?
I wish it was, personally.
That'd be pretty cool.
But yeah, if you had to, put the gun to my head and say, do I believe that that it was a setup? I'm starting to believe it was, the more I look into the story.
Yeah, I think that they're just... Because you look at Paul Manafort when he was the campaign manager for Trump, he was the manager leading into the RNC, and then slightly after, and then Trump switched to Steve Bannon. So, the Russian narrative was born when the DNC leaks happened, the first day of the DNC. Now, when did the Donald Trump Jr. meeting happen?
It was in June of 2016.
So, it was before or after?
The conventions were at the end of July, I believe.
Yeah, so it was before.
So it was about a month before.
So they were preparing for the Russian narrative for a long time, even prior to the DNC leaks. And like I said before, it's no coincidence that they bring the stuff up right after Trump has a productive meeting with Vladimir Putin. That's not allowed. The deep state is not down with that, okay?
Yeah.
So... I don't have any other things to say about this other than I'm so sick of Donald Trump.
It's just being insane.
Russia stuff.
I mean, you were talking about it earlier, maybe before we were actually on air, about how insanely long it would take to do a timeline of this.
Yes.
And, oh my gosh, it's just exhaustive. Because, and in the way you brought it up, too, after they had that meeting, how this just came up, the timing is just too perfect at every point. I mean, it's just, it's an onion, man. The more you unfold it, the more it stinks.
And just my thing is just like, okay, if you think that there's collusion going on, name the statute that Donald Trump Jr. broke. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you have something that you can, prove on him, start saying statutes, because that's how this thing works. You can't just say, oh, he talked to someone that was Russian. It means Trump's in bed with the Russians. Okay, now we can impeach Trump. No, you need to start, defining this stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm so sick of every single Russian person that the Trump administration's ever talked to references that we're in bed with them. It's so stupid. Trump is not, up to this point, until this meeting, done anything Vladimir Putin wants him to be doing. He's not a puppet of Vladimir Putin. It's stupid.
But, there's nothing more I have to say about that, but they're never going to quit it with this Russian nonsense. They're going to keep it up every single week. Anytime things look good, boom, new story is going to come out.
It's going to be a 2020 talking point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go into the next thing that we have to talk about, though. So, the healthcare vote in the Senate on their healthcare bill has been delayed. This actually came out today, I believe. Mitch McConnell said they're delaying the vote because Senator John McCain of Arizona has to recover from some surgery. What kind of surgery was it, Bobby?
He was having surgery to remove a blood clot in his head.
You said it was a really big blood clot.
I believe, if I'm correct, they said it was a 5-centimeter blood clot, which that's not a minor surgery that you recover from. So he's going to be recovering for a little while for that.
Yeah, I mean they definitely need an excuse to delay this vote because. Currently the GOP has a 52-48 lead over the Democrats in the Senate, but Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky and Susan Collins of Maine have already said that they're voting against this bill. So, one senator decides not to go along and the thing's dead.
Yeah.
But
I kind of like that about our system.
Which, yeah, it's pretty good. But, yeah, this healthcare stuff has been super frustrating. I definitely don't want the Trump name attached to this bill at all.
I do not. Yeah,
at all. I don't know what the priorities of the Republican Party are at the moment. The leadership has no idea what they're doing.
It sounds like they just want to protect insurance companies.
That's what this bill kind of looks like. It just looks like it's a bailout for insurance companies, which I mean, yeah, insurance.
Which the last
healthcare insurance companies are doing terrible right now because Obamacare is destroying them. 70% of the counties in the United States have either one or two Obamacare insurance providers at the moment, and that number is only going to get worse. Everything's collapsing at the moment. But Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. Like, this is going to look really bad. If they pass this bill's not going to be good.
No, it's not.
If they don't do anything about it, like, yeah, Trump's going to get blamed for this stuff, even though Trump's not in charge of doing this.
And, you were saying before the show, it keeps a lot of the regulations and stuff from Obamacare in place.
A lot of the subsidies.
Yeah, really, all it really does is I think it does remove, what was the name for that tax?
The mandatory fine or whatever?
The individual mandate.
Yeah, the individual mandate. It removes portions of that, if not altogether, from what I've read. And also, it does allow people to, buy their own insurance and stuff like that, which, I mean, you can kind of still do that now, but it was, more freedom to do it.
Well, the thing
bill,
about...
I definitely don't like the bill. It's got a couple of good things, but overall, it's not good. It really isn't.
The thing about the individual mandate with how this bill addresses is it still essentially exists. It changes it to where if you don't have a health insurance provider past, I think it's 60 days or something, you're going to be charged a 30% increase surcharge for a year for health insurance when you get back on. So, you're still, not allowed just not to have health insurance. So
it just gives that money.
It just privatizes the individual mandate.
Yeah.
So it's really terrible. They might have changed that since we did that health insurance.
Well, that's the thing is that was a lot of older news. I think they got rid of it because that was one of the things people were complaining about. Even then, it's up to the IRS to actually enforce that because Trump can tell the Department of the Treasury. He can literally tell them, I don't want you to enforce this part of the law, and they don't have to enforce it.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
I just don't like what would you call that? A presidential signing statement or a line item veto?
It would probably be an executive order because,
I don't like the legislative... I would just much rather they just not pass this thing and not have to go down that route because I don't like the fact that they would, in any realm, whether it's healthcare or not, pass a law and then have just the president be like, well, ignore that part and enforce this part because that doesn't always work in the general sense our favor.
Yeah.
Now it comes at an interesting point in the summer because we control the House and the Senate, but we're just not passing things. Our biggest opposition is ourselves, and we don't know what we want to do because I know Trump, he wants to move on to tax reform. But or is that going to not happen because of this healthcare bill? I don't know. I would rather just stop with this healthcare stuff and move on to tax reform now.
I would much 100%. Rather focus directly on tax reform and just ignore healthcare for now, personally.
Yeah, I think you just find the points where there's a consensus and get moving on those ideas, get those things through, and not just be sitting there with your thumb up your ass,
Because, under Obama, the House passed over 20 repeal of Obamacare bills or whatever. And now that they have a guy in office that can sign this, they can't do anything. You are in office because you said you're going to do this. You're going to get rid of Obamacare. And now, once you have the opportunity, you're just going to chicken out and not do anything about it?
That's disingenuous.
This is going to be really bad for 2018 if we don't do anything. People might lose seats. Now, I know there's been a lot of talk about repeal now and replace later. I know, Senator Rand Paul said that he'd be willing to do that right now. He said he'd vote for this bill if it repealed 80% of Obamacare, but it doesn't. So, yeah, there's ways that they can be approaching this, but they just don't seem to do anything right at the moment, so it's frustrating.
But, there was one more thing that you had mentioned there about how, what was it, 70% of the counties in the U.S. only have one insurer?
Yeah, I get that number from the Heritage Fund. They've been posting a lot of stuff about it.
And, we have some information according to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services that just in total, the number of insurers who are participating in the Obamacare exchanges at this time last year was 227 of them. This year, it's only at 141. So there's significantly less insurers who are even participating in Obamacare to begin with. On top of the fact that, there's so many counties where only one insurer is even there. So that's not going to bode well going forward in the future. But
And just like we're down to several states only have one health insurance provider, and I know we've been talking about this stuff for a while. Like Iowa potentially will have 0 at one point next year. So like we need to figure out something. Like very soon, like the system's gonna collapse.
And have they allowed us to buy it across state lines yet?
No, and that was one of the things that they proposed in the bill, but...
Yeah, I'm so tired of this omnibus crap. Just do this one little thing, let it stand alone.
Yeah.
That's a 2-sentence resolution you could write right there that would do so much to free up the market. I mean, I think it's important to note, too, when we were talking earlier about getting stuff done. This isn't about necessarily writing new laws. It might just be about repealing old, dumb laws. Just get moving on that kind of stuff and free up the market. And these situations, these solutions will just present themselves if we allow the market to work in healthcare.
And we did our midweek episode where we talked about what our ideas would be if we had to, fix the healthcare.
Yeah, that's what we always kind of point back to if you want to hear what me and Bobby's opinions on what we'd do to fix it. I think what we proposed would work.
Yeah.
But like, just the hard thing about the healthcare issue is, no matter how you write it, someone's going to get screwed over. But if you don't do anything, everyone will get screwed over.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing with this health insurance and healthcare stuff. So, I don't know. Hopefully they'll do something. Maybe while McCain is recovering, they'll think of something. Hopefully.
Maybe without him there influencing it negatively, they'll actually get something done.
Yeah.
He's pretty much a Democrat. Let's go into some good news, though. So, we have some stuff on the VA. Do you have the stuff up, Bobby?
I do. So, there's some news out of the Veterans Affairs Committee, and it says that more than 500 officials have been terminated from their positions since Trump became president. Now, you remember, we talked about this on the show, when Trump signed the executive order dealing with the VA that allowed
so you can fire officials
quicker. So you can fire officials quicker, not have to have this 30-day waiting period.
That was like 2 weeks ago now.
That was a few weeks ago. But they've now released the information about like their employment records showing that there have been 500 people that have been fired from the VA, and these are people that we weren't able to fire in the past, people that were not good at their jobs, or people that shouldn't have been there or were doing things badly. So they're actively working to clean up the VA, and this is just, another piece of the puzzle put in to show that, it's going very well in that regard.
Yeah, drain the swamp, getting rid of the bureaucracy that rules over the VA, and this is something that he ran on. He said that he was going to reform the VA, and yeah, you look at what he's doing right now at the VA, what we've been reporting in the last couple of weeks, we've been especially getting a lot of news about the VA. Things are happening. Things are looking up at the VA. So, he's fulfilling a campaign promise in that sense.
And I have a correction to make. Earlier I said it was the executive order he signed. It wasn't. It was the law that Congress passed that he signed. The Department of Veteran Affairs Accountability and Whistleblower Protection Act. That's what it was called. It wasn't the executive order. It was Congress passed it.
Yeah. He signed it, though. So, yeah, the VA is looking pretty good. We also have another good story as far as what Jeff Sessions and Tom Price has done also in regards to healthcare that we want to get into. You wanted me to talk about this, Bobby?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me get this up for a second. Jeff Sessions and Tom Price have just announced the largest fraud case in healthcare history. They've arrested 412 people, including 56 doctors, which were all colluding in this fraudulent case that they found. They estimate that $1.3 billion were fraudulently schemed. And, Jeff Sessions, ever since he's been appointed, I know not everyone likes Jeff Sessions, but he's actually cracking down on things, and they just cracked down on the biggest case of fraud we've ever seen in healthcare in this country. But I bet no one's talked about that on the news this week.
I mean, I follow the news, almost religiously, and even I didn't hear about it until you told me about it a couple days ago.
So, there's some other stuff on here.
Well, it's saying that as a result of this operation, 295 healthcare providers are now in the process of being suspended or banned from participation in federal health programs. So it's to the point where, like, the healthcare providers themselves were funneling so much money fraudulently that, like, they're not even going to be allowed to be in business anymore.
Which I guess if we want to fix our healthcare, situation here in the United States, it's helpful to get rid of some of the corruption that's going on.
And you said it was a lot about opioids, correct?
I didn't say that, but okay. It is.
Yeah, they said 121 of the defendants, including doctors, were charged with improperly distributing the opioid painkillers, which are, as we know in this country right now, we're having a huge opioid epidemic in this country. And a lot of that's because people are getting it, not illegally, but because doctors are providing it for them when they shouldn't be. And, we said there was, 412 people. Most of that was because of, fraud. 120 of them were because of the fact that they were illegally giving painkillers to people that they shouldn't have been giving them to.
Well, I applaud Jeff Sessions for doing this, and think that that's absolutely great for the health of this, the healthcare system, purging it of these bad elements. I also wish he'd look a little bit closer and a little bit more adult-like about medical marijuana, because I think that would go a long way towards solving some of the opioid addiction issues that we do have that has created some of these pill pushers and the fraudulent places that they run that have been an absolute blight on our healthcare system and have destroyed entire small towns almost. I don't know. I don't think I'm being I don't think I'm overstating that. It's just been horrible what it's done to America, the opioid crisis.
I know, the worst hit state for the opioid crisis is New Hampshire.
New Hampshire and West Virginia are always mentioned.
Yeah, it's getting really bad. Do you want to go into this last thing that we have from the Trump administration?
Yeah, we'll go ahead. So the very last thing we wanted to talk about for the Trump administration this week is that Trump is starting to pull the federal government out of K-12 education. And what he did was he signed an executive order called the Education Federalism Executive Order, which is launching a 300-day review of Obama-era regulations and guidance for school districts. And it also directs Education Secretary Betsy DeVos to modify or repeal measures that she seems as an overreach by the federal government. This article that we're reading kind of goes into a little bit more detail, but one of the things...
From the Washington Times?
Yeah, it's from the Washington Times. But one of the things I do like is what they said, and Trump was quoted in this. He said, "We know that local communities know it best, and they can do it best. So it's time to empower our teachers and parents to make the decisions that will help their students achieve success."
I couldn't be happier to hear about that. I just think that the Common Core, this thing, I don't know if it touches this or if it allows them to
I know that they're trying to get rid of Common Core.
Well, this seems like a good way to do it.
Yeah.
Or it empowers her to do a lot to gut it.
Yeah, it wouldn't necessarily get rid of it altogether, but, if people say, hey, something right here is hurting us, they'll say, okay, we're going to get rid of that thing right there. It's not really shattering the glass, it's picking little tiny pieces of it out at a time. But I really like this. I think it's really good. And they said it, obviously it's a 300-day review period, so it's not like it's going to have an immediate impact, but, 2-3 years down the line, this is definitely going to help it.
Yeah. And... we don't need the federal government involved in local education to begin with. So, and Obama was overreaching at how he was changing education. Common Core was the biggest one, where it was intruding on how all these schools do these things, instead of letting this be done at the state or local level.
And so much of it isn't a funding issue. It's a control issue. It's a unfunded mandates, I guess you could call them.
Yeah, and from what it looks like, that's almost exactly what this executive order kind of does. Now, DeVos already has the authority to modify and repeal regulations that she thinks are a violation of the federal law. But what this executive order does is it really, by creating that review period, it makes it a lot easier to identify what those actually are for her to go forward. So,
I'm very pleased with Betsy DeVos. I know that's a very controversial opinion because she's made out to be I don't know, the destroyer of education. What I've heard, and I'm involved with education stuff in college, and I've only heard the worst things in the world about it. But this is exactly what I would want. So
well, I don't know. Maybe you and I can overlap a little bit on this experience, but it seem sometimes that everybody who happens to work in education thinks that they're an expert in education?
Yeah.
Have you ever encountered this? I mean, not everybody who works out on an oil rig is a chemical engineer. And so many other examples I can think of, Just because you play first base for the Astros doesn't mean you'd be a great front office guy for the Astros. It just means you're good at first base.
Yeah.
And I think the same can be said of education.
It's like, say you teach art. Like, yeah, you know about art, but you don't really know about how to structurally, control the federal government when it comes to how they run education.
Yeah.
That's a very different topic altogether.
It's real macro. It's just a huge difference, a big leap.
But I mean, a lot of the pushback that she's gotten as well is just because that she advocates for school choice and stuff, which, I mean, I want school choice as well. But, teachers unions, which we don't have here in Texas, but teachers unions are always super against school choice, so,
We have teacher associations. We could get into this, but we could get and talk about it a little bit more later because there's going to be some reform there. But we do have associations. We don't use the word union like you would have up in Wisconsin or I would have where I'm from in Pittsburgh. But, down here it's a dirty word.
Yeah. So, I don't know. A little sidetracked on that, but I do like Betsy DeVos. So, I'm pretty glad that she's now getting to work to get the government out of education. Because, or the federal government.
Yeah.
Let's get into some of the economic stuff that you wanted to get over, Bobby.
Okay.
Go over.
So, yeah. The very first story that we have, this is another really good story that's come out. It says that the average FICO score has hit an all-time high. For the first time ever, the average national FICO score, which is, people's credit scores, has reached a level of 700. Now, if you don't know, credit scores range from 300 to 850, and usually anything above 700 is considered good. Anything above 750 is excellent. Anything less than about 650 is bad. So the fact that, our credit scores for this country are now, on average, in the good level is a good sign for the future. And things have been steadily getting better ever since the end of the Great Recession a few years ago. But it said that they actually bottomed out at 686 during the housing crisis, which, that's only 14 points below 700. But for an average of the entire nation, to move up 14 points in a couple of years is great improvement to the point where, they've never been this high in average ever at 700. So, we keep talking about how good, economically, how good, the economy's doing is, or how the economy is doing, how consumer confidence is high. But here's another indicator that we have that, now, people's credit scores are at an all-time high. Very, very good news.
What was the next thing that you want to go into?
The next story?
Yes.
Yeah, and the next story is kind of the opposite. This is some bad news, at least if you live in the state of Connecticut.
This is the opposite of credit.
The capital of Connecticut, Hartford, their bonds that they pass have now been downgraded by the S&P to junk status. Now, we've been talking about on the show for the last couple weeks about the whole situation going on in Illinois and how they might...
Which they're a step above junk status in Illinois.
They're one step above junk status. And, they weren't able... And Illinois was actually finally able to pass a budget to end their,
With those tax increases we were talking about last week.
Correct. So, but they were finally able to pass a budget. Now, it's actually still possible that they will get downgraded to junk status, but by passing the budget, it would certainly help their situation. Doesn't completely fix it, but, it's not, all doom and gloom that people thought. Whereas in Hartford, Connecticut, they've been downgraded to junk now, citing growing liquidity pressures and weaker market access prospects. But yeah, so that's just kind of what we wanted to just say. That there was that Connecticut, your city's not doing very well.
WWE headquarters is in Hartford, Connecticut.
WWE?
Yeah.
Enzo, what do Illinois and Connecticut have in common?
I don't know.
They're both blue states.
Oh.
Oh, and there's tons of old wealth in Connecticut too. It's crazy.
But yeah, that's not really good news for them. But for the rest of the country, I'm glad that our credit scores are at an all-time high. And,
the rest of the country's doing okay.
As long as you don't live in Connecticut or Illinois, you're probably fine.
Well, they probably have less sense of personal fiscal responsibility sort of ingrained in themselves. The culture tends to be that you can be extremely generous with other people's money, and that's the nature of government up there. And I think that it's the opposite case in some other places of the country where people are pretty tight-fisted, and they want a government that's as tight-fisted as they are with their finances.
Do you want to go into the one thing we have for science this week?
Yeah, you said you wanted to cover this, so I'll let you do it.
So I'm not a big fan of science at all. I don't know anything, but I did see this. I usually never put any of these articles up, but I was the only person that found one this week. And so in China, a group of scientists and researchers out of Beijing are now saying that they can genetically modify dogs to create super dogs through cloning, and they actually made a litter of super dogs. So
I wish we had a picture to show them.
Yeah, I wish so.
Sadly, this is an audio podcast.
It's just a giant, muscular, beefy, linebacker-looking dog.
Yeah, I mean, it says that the dogs, which they were test tube bred in the lab, they have twice the muscle mass of their natural counterparts, and they're considerably more stronger and faster.
The question is, are they going to use them? They're going to make like a dog army?
I guess.
Or are they going to use them for eating? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I was saying this, if you got a dog that's got twice the muscle mass, more muscle means more meat.
Right. Exactly. I have nothing against that whatsoever, by the way.
I mean,
if I ever visited China, I would definitely eat dog.
You got to feed 1.5 billion people somehow. Just saying.
Super dogs.
But yeah, China has just developed super dogs. Now, this breed of dogs they actually made through test tubes. They made 27 dogs through test tubes. An entire litter of dogs were made in a laboratory. It's so insane. And they're saying in the article, though, that the genome for dogs is very similar to humans. So really, this points to we could potentially be dealing with this with people very soon. That's the thing.
Oh, somebody in a dark lab is working on that somewhere.
See, I'm not really afraid of genetically engineering people and stuff. I don't think geneticism's a crazy, super scary thing.
It worked out well for Captain America.
It didn't work out well for the island of Dr. Moreau.
I don't know what that is.
All right, well, I guess
we're moving on.
Oh, man.
Literary reference. But Marlon Brando actually was in that movie, The Island of Dr. Moreau. They did make a movie of it. Yeah, but it's insane and kind of a cautionary tale against that stuff. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a slightly different generation who's a little bit more afraid of that.
Are you okay with genetically engineering the dogs, though?
Strangely, yes. Because it sounds like such a far-off, weird thing. It's oh yeah, something, the way you read it, like a headline from China. If I saw it going on down the street, I'd probably feel different about it.
Because in the same sense, like transhumanism is down the road as well. It's going to be happening very soon where we can merge people with robots and whatnot. This is along the same line of we can genetically modify humans. No matter what your feelings are, I think this stuff's going to happen a lot sooner than we realize.
Oh, absolutely. And if I could for a moment indulge in that, I think there's a difference between genetically engineering a person versus maybe taking an old person and putting in some sort of chip or implant that might help them with their Alzheimer's or something. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know where to draw the line. I just know that one feels okay to me, and the other feels a little creepy and weird.
Yeah. Do you want to go into immigration now, Bobby?
Sure, let's do it.
Open the door! Immigration!
La migra, vamos, niños!
This week in immigration.
Okay, so the first thing that we have for immigration this week is the House panel allocated $1.6 billion towards the border wall. Do you got the specifics on that, Bobby?
I do. This was really, really good.
Pretty much biggest win of the week for me.
Yeah. It was the House Appropriations Committee, which is the committee that does all the budgeting and stuff. That's the point. They appropriate the money. They've appropriated in their newest bill, allocating $1.6 billion to begin construction of the border wall with Mexico. And the White House, in their request, was for $1.6 billion. So this fully meets the White House's request for this upcoming budget that they got. And, I mean, that's super, super happy for me. And I just wanted to say that's pretty much all they got to do. But there's an accompanying report that comes along with it that we'll have by next week for next week's show. It's going to specify where the segments of the wall are going to be built first. So I know you're really happy about that.
Because I want to get some wall here in Texas. I want to go see them work on this thing. Like, this is the wall, okay? This is the reason why Donald Trump is president right now. Like, this is...
You want to take a road trip?
Yeah. It's only like 3 hours to the border.
Yeah.
I've been to the border once. I don't want to go again until there's a wall. But once they start working on the wall, yeah, I'll go check it out.
Yeah. And also, in case anyone else is wondering, the bill does allocate money to other things as well. It gives like $14 billion to Customs and Border Protection.
Million.
No, that was billion. That's
Billion?
in general.
Oh.
That's in general. But $1.6 billion for the wall, $100 million to hire more Border Patrol agents, $131 million for new border technology that we're going to use, as well as $106 million for more aircraft and sensors, and another $109 million for non-intrusive inspection equipment. So that was
what that could
that's
mean.
literally in air quotes, so I have no idea what that means. But total funding for ICE for next year, according to this bill, is going to be $7 billion, which is an increase of $619 million. So with more money, you can deport a lot more people.
Yeah, this wasn't exactly something I was really big on when the idea was floated. It seemed kind of archaic to me, but I see and understand the reason why people went with this and why it was such a huge lightning rod during the campaign. I will say one thing now. It's going to happen. That's the will of the people. Not necessarily what I was going for, but I'll tell you what I did like was how, and it sounded, this was the thing that nobody believed, and Mexico's going to pay for it. Well, I wish they had worked out that first before they started appropriating money, i.e. these other promises like taxes on remittances, certain visas, passing over the border. I wish they had worked out that stuff first, because like almost every other grandiose government program, it's buy now, pay later. And I really like the idea of seeing how, this thing could have paid for itself with X, Y, and Z things having to do with travel and trade with Mexico.
Do you want to touch on this, Bobby?
I do. I know. I want to touch exactly what you said.
Y'all both jumping at the bit here?
Because Cameron, let me preface, Cameron's not like a big Trump supporter guy. Me and Bobby are.
Right. And no, seriously, no bad anything. No bad vibes or feelings in this room.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, absolutely, there are people who would, like, not even share the same air or space as you for talking about this. Whereas I am like, no, we're a country that has borders that should have a robust immigration program. Mm-hmm. I quite frankly think we have a great immigration program that's underused in terms of its enforcement. So, you know, I for the last 20 years have been saying, why don't we just enforce the laws that are on the books?
Yeah.
I never wanted a grandiose catch-all plan. But I see now why people think, in lieu of doing all the little things over the last 30 years, that there was a lot of people wanting that grandiose catch-all plan. Now, I don't think it is going to achieve what people are hoping it's going to achieve, but this is the spirit of give and take. Now, you had something to say, so hit me with it.
Well, I was going to say, I'll preface this first by saying, me and Enza, we both have computers in front of us. We're looking at all the articles and stuff. Cameron does not. So,
so you can shut me down quite easily.
So you were mentioning, you said, you wanted the wall to pay for itself.
It will.
Well,
and I could only, please prove me wrong. I hope it does.
Well, obviously, Enzo and I, we support stuff like tax remittances, and I completely agree with you. I wish they had that stuff ready to go before.
We should do a show over the wall soon as well.
We will. But
we got to keep dropping like Pink Floyd, like references throughout, or like little breaks, musical breaks, Oh,
I wish. But in terms of the wall paying for itself,
yes.
A couple of weeks ago, Trump made a comment about covering the border wall with solar panels,
which actually is the next article,
right? And that's what I'm getting to the next article. Well, when he was flying in Air Force One on Wednesday, there was a group of reporters who asked him about that, and they thought he was joking. He said, "I'm not joking. We're covering that thing in solar panels." He said, "There's a chance that we can do a solar wall. We have major companies looking at that. Look, there's no better place for solar than the Mexico border, the southern border, and there's a very good chance we can do a solar wall, which will actually look good. So we're going to cover the wall in solar panels, and it's going to provide electricity
that can pay for the wall,
the United States. So even if Trump never fulfills the promise of getting Mexico to pay for it, even if we never tax remittances or tax visas or anything like that, if it can at least provide electricity, it's paying for itself. So the wall will pay for itself. It'll take a while.
A self-paying wall.
But, I mean, I was watching this episode of The West Wing that was made back in like 2004, 2005. And one of these guys came up and he said, "Look, I have an idea to completely provide energy for the entire U.S. forever via solar." And they said, "Okay, what's your idea?" He said, "I just want a massive field of solar panels." When they asked him the size, it said the size would be the size of the state of Utah. That's a lot, and you're not going to be able to do that. But what if you have several hundred miles of border wall like we have?
What if, like, hypothetically, over 1,000 miles?
Yeah. What if you have several hundred, if not 1,000 miles of just concrete sitting there with solar panels on the top, providing electricity for, however much electricity it can actually provide?
Tons. I mean, you're talking about millions of people.
You can easily, even if all you do is provide electricity for A, the wall itself, B, anything that, the Border Patrol is doing that's connected to it, C, any small towns living in the area. That's a significant amount of power that you can generate using that many solar panels for that large of an area. I love it.
And look, this type of talk doesn't scare me. I mean, I'm serious, limited government, I guess you could say constitutionalist. And it just so happens that it provided, that this is one of the few things the federal government is mandated to have dominion over. And so, absolutely, be robust with your immigration policy.
Which, you look at what we're doing now with the prototypes that are being built right now as we speak, actually in San Diego, they are testing ones with solar panels. I mean, I forgot how many finalists it came down to as far as border walls they're working on for the prototypes. But
wait, is this why we let the Afghan girls in?
No, actually, Trump let those Afghan girls in to do that. I think it was a science fair, right?
Oh, I figured maybe the science fair had something to do with building the wall.
Oh, no. Trump personally let them in. He personally called them up and said, "Let them in."
Yeah.
No, but yeah, we're working on solar paneled walls right now. And, we're actually building the wall right now. People don't realize. Like, these prototypes are going to be part of the wall. Like, the thing about the wall is, like, it probably won't be, like, the same wall every single mile of the thing. Like, we're going to have different types of walls. But, yeah, we got the money to already start working on the wall. We're working on the wall. And, the wall might pay for itself at this point. Mexico might not even, too. I really don't care if Mexico doesn't pay for the wall, personally. So, I mean, this will save a lot of money if we don't have to pay for all of the illegal aliens, in the country if they're not coming anymore. That's my thing. I think it would be great if Mexico pays for it, and I think Mexico can pay for it through different means.
And that's the thing, yeah. It's not about going to knocking on Mexico's door and asking for a check.
No.
But a tax on remittances is something that has been floated in the campaign, and I was searching for things to be like, okay, I agree with that on. And that was one thing that I was like, okay, we should probably do this.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, tax remittances, that's what me and Enzo have been talking about on the show. What we would personally like to see done more than anything else. But yeah.
Let's do a show this week for the midweek show, either on the wall or the Russia conspiracy. I think those.
It's going to take a while to create the story for the Russian conspiracy, so I think if we do the wall, we'll be able to do that a little bit better. What we'd like to see in the wall, that sort of stuff. Everything.
I mean, we know a lot of stuff on the wall that most people don't know.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
But let's get into the next story.
Yeah, so the next one is actually pretty good news as well, in my opinion. So it looks like DACA might not be a thing anymore.
Now, can you describe what DACA is, Enzo?
DACA is Deferred Action Against Childhood Arrivals, which it's Obama's pseudo-amnesty that he did via executive order back in 2012, which allowed the children of illegal aliens that came over not to be deported. I believe there's at least 750,000 people there on DACA. It might be more, but
oh man, you're talking about those few times there, and there's a little stretch there where there were 50,000 unaccompanied minors showing up at a time or something like that. Just like it was insane, or within a few months of each other.
Yeah, that's when the DACA started, actually.
And that's cowardly. I mean, it's just absolutely, with some of the stories I've heard of just people sending their under 15-year-old kids, from Central America all the way up on this death-defying journey on a train top to I just think that's not responsible.
Which, like, when you offer things like DACA, the pseudo-amnesty, like, yeah, people south of the border are going to be like, oh, I got to get my kids in there so they can get this. That's why they all got sent at the same time. Yep. They saw what was going on. Okay, incentives, like, they matter a lot.
Yes.
How these things work. But, Bobby, you got some more specifics on this?
Well, you were saying that Secretary John Kelly, he was the one who was talking about it.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about this.
And what was the specifics of, like, wasn't there a lawsuit or some states were joining a lawsuit about it?
There are several states that are looking to sue the United States government over DACA. I know Texas is one of them. I know Greg Abbott talks a lot about it. There's something like 5 or 6 that are looking to sue the United States government over it. And John Kelly has said that the government's not going to contest this. Because the thing is, DACA is unconstitutional.
Yeah, it is.
Like, we just repealed DAPA, which is the other program that goes in tandem with it, which is for the parents. This one's for the kids, the dreamers. This is what DACA is, the dreamers, if you don't know. So yeah, they're likely going back. And it's interesting. The Obama administration really didn't think this stuff through so well. I think they really thought Hillary was going to win, because the thing is, like, to get on these programs, you have to send, like, all your personal information to the federal government. So now we can use this to
so we know who those people are.
We know who they are. We know where they live. We know everything about them. So, like, oops, wasn't a smart idea. So yeah. Personally, for me, the biggest reason why I'm against DACA is because these people are gonna vote for leftists in the future. Mm-hmm. Like, if you give these people amnesty, they're just gonna vote for liberals. Like, they have polls on this stuff through the Pew Research. Hispanic immigrants, they vote 8-2 for bigger government, and this trend continues generations down the line. Even 3 generations down the line, it's 7-3 for big government. I mean, you look at how the government works in Mexico or south of the border. It's all socialistic, pretty much. I mean, 2 of the 3 major parties in Mexico are socialist. Like, it's no big surprise that they want the same thing here.
And it's insane to me that so many of our young people between your age and mine that would be socialist have not gone down there to see the effects that has had on society. Because when you look at what they want, right, income equality, it's horrible. In Mexico, you've got, there is no middle class. You're either rich or you're poor. And it just so happens that a lot of these policies that people would bray on and on about here, when they see the effects of those policies in just, let's say, Latin America, for instance, there's countless examples of how much heartache, pain, and death that has caused. And by the way, the reason so many of them have come here. So don't bring that stuff here. You know what I mean? That's a big thing.
I don't think it's that wrong to like say that like I don't want foreigners coming here and changing how we live.
Right.
Like I don't, because we live in Texas and this would affect us a lot. Like if we were to give amnesty to these people and then they're voting for left-wing things, like it's going to affect me.
And you're talking about ideology.
Yeah.
You're not talking about race, religion. You're not talking about that stuff. You're talking about the workings of the society and the state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, if they have their way, they can vote to raise the taxes on us.
Yeah.
They can vote to give more programs to people like themselves. Like they'll just, you know, they're coming in here to benefit themselves. So like, why can't I be against that? Why can't I advocate for myself? Is that such a bad thing? I don't know. You tell me. So
I'm sure you get told that it is a bad thing all the time, and that's why you are the way you are. I can see it. I can see it in your eyes. You hear this crap all day, don't you?
Yeah. So like, I don't care. So,
yeah.
The thing is, once you stop caring what people think of you and just expressing yourself like the way you are, people like gravitate to you. So, who cares? But yeah, side tangent. But yeah, that's why I'm against DACA, and I think that's a good enough reason to be against it. I actually have like an ex-girlfriend that I'm pretty sure is on DACA, so she might be coming back. My dad is just like, I don't even want to get into it. It was just like, yeah, I still support you going back. Like, I'm not going to let my personal like life affect how I view things.
Wait a
should
minute.
Be policy.
Come back again. Under DACA, your dad would
No,
be?
not my dad.
Okay.
My ex-girlfriend from high school.
Okay, all right.
My dad tries to use it as a point because like he supports this stuff.
Oh, okay.
I still think that like in spite of like personal relations, you should still go back.
Yeah, yeah. And your dad's kind of like I guess he would have been like a Marco Rubio.
Yeah, you know,
kind of
he was saying to me this
Okay.
weekend, it's like, man, things would be so much better if Marco Rubio was president.
Oh, God.
Can you imagine that? It's just like, oh, okay.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that Marco Rubio probably would not be doing, and that's the next article that we're talking about.
Great segue.
Yeah.
And that's the DHS right now is creating a long overdue computer system to finally track foreign visitors who fail to depart the United States on time because of their work visas. Now, a lot of people on the left will say that, you know, a majority of the people who are in this country illegally are here because they're visa overstays.
Which is true.
Which is true. I'm not going to dispute that. That's absolutely true. Most of the people who are illegally did not cross the border illegally. They came legally, were supposed to leave, but did not leave. Right now, we do not have a very good system to track who is, you know, who's overstayed their welcome. We're finally creating that system, and it said it should be ready by, it just says 2018, so, you know, that could be any
I've seen
time
like
next
early
year.
2018, most of the estimates on this.
Yeah, but yeah, it says roughly 40% of the 11 million illegal immigrants, like, I don't know, we believe that number is a lot higher than that. Yeah. But even they say roughly 40% of those illegal immigrants living in the U.S. are estimated to be visa overstays. And those are people that you 100% can track.
Yes.
You know, once we get the system up and running, the minute or the day after someone's visa expires, if they haven't left the country yet, and we know when they leave the country, you know, they check with that stuff when you go to the airports. The minute that they don't leave that country, you can boom, go get them and take them away and say you've overstayed your welcome. I'm sure there'll probably be like a week period where they'll be like, okay, you've overstayed, your visa overstayed, expired. You have like 7 days to
time
get
to
out
figure this out.
it. But yeah, we're finally getting rid of the people.
I think how many hundreds of other countries in the world do this?
Yeah,
and they put a stamp on your passport and say you have this many days here. So, I don't know. It just seems like this isn't any departure from the norm. Mm-hmm. And it's just not a big freaking deal.
The DHS estimated that 730,000 people overstayed their visas in 2016. Now, some of them probably did end up leaving after they overstayed their visas.
A lot didn't.
A lot of them didn't. and they're still here. And, we talk about, people say, oh, how hard it is to actually find the people that are illegal. Well, there you go. These are people who are already, quote unquote, I guess I could use the word registered with the government. We know who they are. We know where they are. We can go after them. So I'm glad that they're finally making this computer system.
And the thing
it's long overdue.
The thing is, you think about it this way, though. Once we have this system in place and we start seeing some results from this, overstays are going to go down drastically. Because now they're going to know this. It doesn't work in the United States anymore. That's like how all this stuff works, okay? You need to let people know that we're serious about this so then they won't try.
I mean, that's part of the reason why illegal border crossings are down like 70%.
Yeah.
Since the inauguration. The U.S. finally got serious about this, and even without a border wall.
It's down because we know that we're serious about this.
People aren't coming here. So, yeah. And like I said, this thing is long overdue. They first wanted to create after 9/11 when several of the hijackers were actually visa overstays. So that could have prevented that. But, that was 2001. It's now 2017. So it's well overdue. So I'm glad they're finally creating it.
Do you want to get into the next one?
Yeah, I know you added this to the article dump, right? So you know more about it than I do.
Yeah, I don't know the best about it, though.
Well, I'll segue into it, and then you can talk about it. So, yeah. So Donald Trump is canceling Obama's special immigration program for foreign entrepreneurs.
So, yes, the Trump administration on Monday put a hold on an Obama-era policy that was designed to encourage foreign entrepreneurs to settle in the United States to build companies, saying immigration officials are already overwhelmed with more important work. Let me look. This is the latest in President Obama's executive actions on immigration to be undone by Donald Trump, and it comes a week before the new policy would take effect. Can you see some of the stuff on this, Bobby?
There's a lot of information here. It's very, very hard to find.
Yeah.
But it's talking about a lot of people that have been arrested illegally because of this. But
let's skip this one.
Yeah, let's go and skip it. I'm sorry, everyone, for listening. We just wasted 2 minutes of your time.
Yeah, it's whatever. But, I was thinking of cutting it earlier, actually.
Okay, well, let's get into the next story, which is actually some really, really good news.
Yeah. So we got some numbers on deportations that are going on.
I love it. So deportation numbers are soaring, Enzo.
Most definitely.
Do you have the numbers?
Oh, I thought you were pulling them up.
Oh, I am, but you're the one who talked about it.
Oh. Jeez, I'm so used to deferring to you. Okay, I'm the one that intros things. Don't get this messed up.
Okay.
I'm not used to being intro to do stuff.
Okay, anyways. Well, there was a February memo was created by Matthew Albench. He's a career official who heads the Enforcement and Removal Operations Division of ICE. He informed his 5,700 deportation officers that effective immediately, ERO officers will take enforcement action against all removable aliens encountered in the course of their duties. Now, we've been talking about how there have been ICE raids of like MS-13 gangs and all these different things all over the country, right, Enzo?
Yeah.
So it's, continuing to talk about that. On average, there are 108 undocumented immigrants a day that have been deported by the Trump administration. That is an uptick of 150% from the same time period a year ago.
So they're actually doing their job now.
Yes. And every single time they're coming across someone who's illegal, they're deporting them.
Now, earlier in this administration, Jeff Sessions actually changed the definition of who's allowed to be deported, and he's changed it to every single person that's here illegally, which is the standard that it should be. You look at the word illegal, that's all you need to know. But yeah, I mean, we've been looking at these numbers for a while. We've been talking about them on the show. Back when we used to get the deferred detainments, we'd give those numbers as well.
And that 108 people a day that I just mentioned a second ago,
yeah,
those are people that have no criminal record.
Mm.
So if you add the people who have a criminal record on top of that, we're probably deporting 200, 250 people a day. It seems like that's really, really low considering how many illegals there are in the country. But, you know.
But here's the thing. You know, I've had people come at me about this as well. Like, oh, you can't deport 11 million illegal aliens. We don't need to. We definitely don't need to do it. I mean, it definitely helps that we're deporting more because it makes it scary, and then they're going to self-deport. Like, the thing is, you just need to cut off the incentives that make them want to stay here. Okay, they're here because, we'll cover their hospital bills. We need to stop doing that. They're here because they get free education for their children. We need to stop doing that. Now, if we want them to go back, we just need to make this place a place that they don't want to stay. It needs to be a scary place to stay. I mean, I'm pretty open about that. That's why the deportation numbers are good, and it's good that they're up. Because they notice when these people are gone, and it makes them go voluntarily themselves.
Right.
You do this over the course of an 8-year presidency, yeah, we'll get most of them, no doubt.
And it also going on to say that there are just over 900,000 people that have been ordered deported by ICE that haven't actually been deported yet. So those are the people, I guess, that they're focusing most on, let alone the people that they're just, catching doing, criminal activities or whatnot. So it's working out really well right now.
Oh yeah, just overall, like the numbers that we've been seeing are better than I would have even imagined prior to him being president. You know, when he was running, and I was trying to imagine what it'd be like. It's better than what I could have even imagined.
Absolutely, 150%. That's 2.5 times as many as the period beforehand.
Along with illegal border crossings down 70%.
Yeah, so things are getting much, much better.
Yeah. Do you want to go into this next thing that we have here?
I do, and I've got the information for this, so
okay.
I'm not going to overstep your boundaries this time, Enzo.
Okay, Trump is coming up with a plan to also cut some legal immigration.
Right, so along with illegal immigration that we've been trying to tackle, we're also looking at legal immigration. And Trump is planning to get behind a bill that's been introduced by Senators Tom Cotton of Arkansas and David Perdue of Georgia. And we saw David Perdue of Georgia
in Orlando,
in Orlando back in September of 2016. And if signed into law, by 2027, 10 years from now, it would slash in half the number of legal immigrants entering the country each year. So normally, we have about 1 million or so legal immigrants that come to this country. It would slash that down to 500,000 each year over the next decade, if signed into law. So, we're not only slowing down illegal immigration, we're slowing down legal immigration as well. And we know there's lots of problems with immigration, both legal and illegal. So that would help a lot of things as well. Right, Enzo?
Yeah. Do you have any specifics on how they're looking to do that?
They said that the forthcoming bill is a revised and expanded version of legislation that was unveiled in February, known as the RAISE Act, which they actually discussed it with Trump at the White House in March, and that's when he praised it and said, I'm going to get behind this if you guys can pass it. But actually right now, to answer your question, it's currently unclear how the White House would pull off that legislation.
Well, I'm also looking at this here, so I'll just read some of it. A senior White House official described the moves as part of a broader reorganization of the immigration system. The official said the White House particularly wanted to target welfare programs and limit citizenship and migration to those who pay taxes and earn higher wages. In order to be eligible for citizenship, you have to demonstrate that you are self-sufficient and you don't receive welfare, the senior administration official said. You're going to reduce low-skilled immigration substantially, which will protect American workers and recent immigrants themselves. Which, I've talked about legal immigration as a problem as well, and people don't really understand the numbers on this, but actually legal immigrants use welfare way higher than natives do. They're actually the highest demographic of people that use welfare. Around 70% of people that are legal immigrants in the United States use welfare. Like, why do we want to import dependence of the state? That doesn't make sense.
Is that your fundamental reason for wanting to reform legal immigration?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, you look back to what Trump said at that Iowa rally, putting the potential 5-year ban on legal immigrants using any welfare program. That essentially would be able to cut a lot of legal immigration as well.
And I'm not sure how much I'm not exactly sure how much Trump would be able to do without having Congress sign laws. Because stuff like this, you do need Congress to sign the law.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that trying to get a ban of 5 years on legal immigrants using welfare after they come in, that would probably be something that would also have to go through Congress as well. That's not something that he can just direct the executive branch to enforce or not enforce.
But like the idea of like legal immigrants using government assistance programs is like an entirely new phenomenon. Like this didn't exist when that great big massive wave of European immigrants came.
20th century waves.
There was no support systems there at all.
It was the church.
Yeah. But yeah, Bobby.
Well, the last thing I wanted to say was when Trump was still running for president before he actually got elected, he promised to shift the U.S. to a merit-based immigration system.
Yes.
And I think we can all agree if you're going to take immigrants, you should have it on a merit-based system. I don't think that's too controversial to say.
It should just people...
That's what most of Europe does, and everybody thinks Europe is the bastion of liberalism.
Right.
So if they can do it, so can we.
And according to the data from the Economic Policy Institute and the Department of Homeland Security's Immigration Yearbook, they said that those admitted to the U.S. on the basis of merit have only accounted for less than 10% of all legal immigrants over the past 15 years.
So we have a lot that wouldn't merit coming here.
Right. So less than 10% are merit-based as of right now. The rest are not merit-based.
I think you're talking about it mostly from the welfare standpoint.
Yeah.
Is that because you want to get rid of the welfare system, or because you would like the welfare system to be utilized by native-born citizens?
I mean, I do think that the welfare system is harmful, but I do want it used by Americans, people that are native-born. I don't think that it's good that people can come here, never pay a dime into the system, and then get on the public dole. I think that's like really bad.
Yeah, I think it's silly, and the only reason I revisited that is because I think this is more. I am more into saying, immigrants or no, let's just get rid of the welfare system. And you talked about the incentive issue earlier, how that problem kind of takes care of itself.
Yeah.
And I'm of the mind that some of these people who come here, some of that is a solution looking for a problem. I mean, when you look at the majority of people who come here, I mean, this isn't like we're being run roughshod over like the migrant crisis in Europe.
No, it's not as bad as that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah. I quite like our system. I think that the immigration laws in the United States are good. And I think that I'd always be in favor of some reforming the welfare system regardless of who's utilizing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Just the big problem for me is when they're using it significantly more than natives. Like, yeah, maybe there's a problem with how we've been doing things for a while.
And the last thing that I really wanted to mention here as I was reading more of this, it says that in the bill it actually increases the number of green cards, but specifically for on the basis of merit, like we said, and they want to focus on a set series of categories such as professors, researchers, those holding advanced degrees, and those with the extraordinary ability in a particular field. So it's not really talking about low-skilled, low-wage people. We're talking about like extremely like merit-based people.
Yeah.
The smartest, the strongest, the best in their particular field, those types of people.
Which, like, this is like right about the time that I think that we need to change this stuff, because like we're not going to need cheap labor very soon in the future with how automation is going. I mean, we reported on the show multiple times that there's robots that are picking vegetables. Like, we're reporting about robots that are running fast food places. Like, these jobs that they say that only, immigrants can fill, these aren't going to be things in like 5 or 10 years. And if we don't change anything and we allow these people to keep on coming in and they get on public assistance and then they don't fill these jobs which they were all brought in to do but don't exist anymore, like, that's just set up for failure in my book.
So this is taking care of the problem before it gets really, really far out of control.
Yeah.
Or at least, it's more than just putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg, but,
Yeah.
it's helping out.
Let's get into the very last thing before we get into the bottom stack of national news. So the director of ICE, he recently called out MS-13 in a pretty cool way. Do you want to get into that, Bobby?
Yeah. He said this was when the acting director of ICE was talking to a group of people. I believe he was giving a speech in... it doesn't necessarily say where he was giving the speech, but when he was talking about MS-13, he said, "Your gang may be big, but my gang is bigger." And his gang, obviously, he's referring to ICE and his deportation officers.
Which we've been going after MS-13 super hard. I mean, I remember a couple of weeks back we were talking about reports where we were getting, 200 MS-13 gang members in single weekends out. Like, this is a very dangerous street gang. And, Jeff Sessions is even floating around the idea of labeling MS-13 a terrorist organization, the way that we're going after them. Mm-hmm. And, acting director...
Director Homan, he's actually a carryover from the Obama administration. And you could tell he's very excited to have a president that's on his team now. Mm-hmm. So he can actually go out and do his job and make this country safe. So, I just wanted to bring that up because they don't really mention ever in the mainstream media how we're fighting MS-13 every single week now, but we are putting a huge dent into their operation. Yeah. So far this year alone, over 2,700 MS-13 members have been deported from the U.S.
I like it when things aren't sensationalized. I've gotten to this point now where I think when every little thing the government does is celebrated, I think it just invites all kind of negative consequences. And where I used to be sort of like, right to know and everything like that, I think with things like this, I think, the quieter the better. It doesn't invite a giant gang war. You're just slowly getting rid of them,
mm-hmm. Yeah. Not only have 2,700 been deported, 3,100 have been arrested on top of that. Because although a lot of the members of MS-13 are illegal, some are legal. So, it's a lot harder to deport some of them. But that being said, we are deporting a lot and we're arresting a lot. And Trump himself, when he was talking about what's the future of MS-13, he said they're going to be gone pretty soon.
Yeah. I just threw that in there because I just loved it when he said, my gang's bigger.
My gang's bigger than yours.
Let's get into the rest of the stuff before we get into current year college craziness. Maybe we can skip over some of the stuff as well, even.
Yeah.
Let's this first thing though, since it's connected to our friends the Russians, let's get into that. So we got some new research on the DNC leaks that point to the leaks actually being locally copied rather than Russians, stealing them. You got the stuff on that, Bobby?
Yeah, I do. So some new meta-analysis has emerged from a document that was published by an independent researcher known as the Forensicator, which suggests that the files evidently published by the Guccifer 2.0 data, which was the DNC leaks, were likely initially downloaded by a person with physical access to a computer, possibly connected to the internal DNC network. They said the individual most likely used a USB drive to copy the information. Now, that completely destroys the narrative that it was completely, hacked in by the Russians.
Yeah.
And it totally reaffirms my suspicion, which was that there were disgruntled people inside the DNC.
Absolutely. And they said the full document was published on a blog, so, this is public information. People can read it if they want. But their analysis indicates that the data was almost certainly not accessed by a remote hacker, much less one from Russia. And if true, that analysis obliterates the Russian hacking narrative completely.
That alone, but we're still going to be talking about Russia next week, so...
No, because I've been talking about this DNC leak thing ever since it happened.
Yeah.
And some of the mysterious deaths that have happened as a result of it.
And
I am so surprised that has not gotten more traction. But they've decided from the beginning that this is going to be, instead of talking about that and owning up to that and truthfulness, it's going to be about Russia.
And, it's actually really interesting if you're looking at some of the information. The guy, the Forensicator, in his published article thing that he wrote, he's saying that, not only is he able to look at that information to figure out that it was a USB drive, he also has figured out that it was most like a Linux OS, a Linux operating system that did it, as well as the fact that there was just under 2 gigabytes of data, and how fast a rate of how many megabytes per second it was copied onto the USB drive, how many zip files were there, how much total information would have been in those zip files once they're unzipped, all that sort of stuff. It's very, very interesting how they're able to get that information, but the fact that they have it shows that, yeah, Russia wasn't the one that hacked the DNC. It's probably most likely, as you said, disgruntled employees who had access to the system that did it by themselves.
Which, it's super cool that we know this, but for me, it's not going to change anything. I love that we do know hardcore, research down into it, this is how the leaks were acquired. But it's not going to change anything. It's the craziest thing that I can, point to so many things all the time with people when I point back to this Russia stuff, because all you need to do is look at the origin of where this happened. But, yeah, they never seem to know,
and they don't want to hear the why. I mean, I think deep down they all know it was stolen from Bernie, or that it was fixed for Hillary, and they don't want to clean their own. They don't want to be making their own bed on anything, but much less on this.
Oh no, the Russian narrative, excuses everything that they've ever done. They didn't lose the election because they sucked. They lose the election because it was cheated from them. So, I don't know. Do you want to go to the next stuff, Bobby?
Oh, and by the way, they're always the ones trying to call out this evil new form of nationalism. Well, I'll tell you where I see it. I see it in this type of rabid anti-Russian stuff that's being plugged every single day. I've been trying to get the news recently every once in a while, just coming and going. I haven't had a lot of time to read recently, so I'll turn on CNN, and it's embarrassing because this is what the rest of the world sees too. It used to be that CNN was kind of that international station that international sort of leaders and diplomats and intelligentsia would watch. I can't believe they'd be watching this now, because if they're outside this country, they're certainly looking in on it, saying oh my God, their people are being held captive by this Russian mania. It's just ridiculous. It's a disservice.
I mean, Sebastian Gorka, he was being interviewed by CNN, and he was talking about CNN's ratings and how low they've gotten. We talked on the show last week. They've dropped to 13th in primetime. In primetime.
They're behind Nick at Night.
They're behind Nick at Night reruns. So he was saying Sebastian Gorka on CNN said more people are watching old cartoons than are watching your program. I love that guy. But that's sort of a distraction from the next article that we wanted to go into.
Yes. So the next thing that we wanted to go into was in regards to James Comey, actually. Also related to Russia still.
Yeah.
But
totally related.
But, yeah, turns out some of Comey's memos were classified, and all of them were FBI property.
Yeah, and that's literally the FBI themselves saying that those were government documents rather than Comey's personal files, meaning the fact that he had them in his possession, in his possession, and he disclosed of them, because he sent them to his friend in order to publish them in the newspapers.
He's committing crimes.
Yeah, that violated the Bureau's rules and procedures. So he was committing a crime in doing that. Now, he has since handed over those documents to Robert Mueller, who's the special person investigating all the quote-unquote Russian interference. But, the fact that he made those documents, those were FBI documents when he made them. He kept them for themselves. He disclosed, and he gave them to people. Both of those were illegal. So, the fact that this is now coming out, I hope we just keep going after Comey for what he did.
Comey's, the worst. I'm not surprised that he committed a crime on what he's done, but, I don't think he's going to see any repercussions for it, necessarily.
Yeah, but the FBI themselves, they said, all records created during official duties are considered government property. And when you sign on to be an FBI agent, there's literally an agreement that you've signed that says, quote, all information acquired by me in connection with my official duties with the FBI and all other material to which I have access remain the property of the United States of America. So At no point was it ever Comey's personal property in that memo that he wrote. It was the FBI.
Yeah. If only the Russian narrative could have died right when it did when Comey testified. Let's get into the next thing, though. So, this is also still
you know this one more than I do, so
I wanted to if the Russian narrative is back, we're going to hammer back. I thought this is over. It's never over.
You cover this.
Yes, okay. So, it looks like the DNC might have been cooperating with the Ukrainian government. Now, it's always the attack that Trump was colluding with the Russians, but do people ever talk about the Hillary collaborating with the Ukrainians? No. So this was brought up on a Monday press conference with Sarah Sanders. Isn't that Huckabee's daughter?
It's Huckabee's daughter.
Yeah.
And she's now the deputy White House press secretary, although she's been doing a lot more of the interviews, and the people that think that Sean Spicer's going to get fired and she's going to replace him, I kind of hope he does, because I like Sarah Huckabee Sanders a lot. She doesn't take any BS from nobody. But continue. That was just my personal opinion.
So, she was asked a question in regards to Donald Trump Jr. about the meeting that he was having with the Russian lawyer. And in her response, she said, Don Jr. took a very short meeting from which there was absolutely no follow-up. Before suggesting that the Democrats were actually the ones who coordinated with the foreign government. Quote, frankly, I think something that may make sense is looking at the Democrat National Convention coordinated opposition research directly with the Ukrainian embassy, she said. Sanders clarified that her statement was not an accusation, instead stressing that it is an on-the-record action they took. Quote, so if you're looking for an example of a campaign coordinating with a foreign country or a foreign source, look no further than DNC, who actually coordinated opposition research with the Ukrainian embassy. And no one in this room, to my knowledge, really had a big problem with that. So what this points back to is the DNC was trying to coordinate with the Ukrainian embassy on information regarding to Paul Manafort because, I'm trying to think back.
What were we saying?
Yeah, because he was he was in the employ of pro-Russian forces at the time.
Yeah.
In Ukraine. For what, PR or something?
Something of that sort.
It was PR related.
But yeah, this is like something you can directly show that the DNC was talking with the Ukrainian embassy.
Yeah.
In the same manner as the Donald Trump Jr. with a Russian lawyer.
Yeah, not saying, ha-ha, we got you, but ha-ha, everybody does this. This is normal business as usual.
Yeah. Like, this is why it just blows my mind I even have to talk about this stuff, is like, this was happening at the same exact time.
Yeah. And, like we said at the very, very beginning of the program, it's not illegal to try to get information, even if it's from foreigners, from foreign nationals. Donald Trump did nothing illegal. The DNC coordinating with the Ukrainian embassy, that wasn't illegal. None of this was illegal. That's how the system works.
They're allowed to make
that's what you got to do. That's what you have to do in order to gather information. So it's people focusing on one thing and ignoring another just to make one side look bad. But, yeah.
Yeah, I just brought up this article just for that reason. So.
And who has verified this? I know you said Sarah Huckabee Sanders brought it up, but where did she get that from?
Oh, she got that information when people go to visit the embassies. They have to log in and say who they're with, what they're there for. So
this was like a State Department document.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
this is a recorded thing that this happened.
So it's not like the DNC was like.
No, I was just interested.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was interested in where that came from.
Yeah, it's not like the DNC was trying to hide the fact that they did that. No, like that was on the record. Like that stuff's
right.
That information
because they know it's not illegal and they know it's not a big deal.
Exactly.
So they just don't have to hide it.
Exactly.
The thing is, they weren't talking to people that are Russian, so it's okay.
Right.
As long as it's the dirt they were
Latvian?
want.
What if they were Lithuanian, Macedonian? Would that still be? I mean, come on. Everything is just like
insane.
Yeah,
insane.
Let's get into the one you want to talk about. This I know, Bobby.
Yeah, this kind of continues with what we've been saying about how the left is full of just like crazy people that are violent. There's a state representative from Maine. His name is Scott Hammond. And he went on a pretty vulgar rant on Facebook the other day, talking about Donald Trump. And he's even threatened to kill Trump. And the Secret Service is now actually investigating this guy. And he said, quote, "Trump is a half-term president at most, especially if I ever get within 10 feet of that pussy." And he also went to go on and say that Trump was installed by the Russians. And yeah, he keeps going on, and he tried to backtrack after he got caught. He's like, "That's not the type of language that I typically use. It does not reflect my personal values. And while it was misguided, it was intended to make a visceral point about the devolving political discourse in America." Yeah,
you're the one
that he's a part of.
Yeah.
He's just joining in, is what he's saying.
And he's, and he was talking about that, and he said, "You're a effing pussy. And your people are destroying America. 100% of intelligent Americans agree that Trump is a complete loser." Like, this is the guy that got elected to office in the state of Maine. Like, I'm glad the Secret Service is looking into this guy. We need to start going after these people. If you make stupid comments like that, if you threaten the president's life, like, that's it. You're done. You're over. Goodbye.
Why do you hold office if you're, like, threatening the president?
Yeah.
Like, does he know that President Trump's the head of the government that he works for?
Like, you'd think as an elected official, you'd have, like,
self-control.
Exactly. The self-control to not post something like that on the internet, especially on a Facebook page. It's not like that was a secret letter he wrote to someone. That was his public Facebook page where he made that.
So he wants people to see what he's saying.
Yeah,
he wants people to be like, "Oh yeah, I support what you say. You really got some balls threatening Trump."
It doesn't say if it was his private Facebook account or his public, I'm representative, whatever page.
It doesn't matter.
Either way.
Yeah. Well, that's not egregious. What's egregious is when you make fun of somebody's plastic surgery on a morning show. That's below the belt. That's when you get Donnie Deutsch on your case. What's that guy's name? Donnie Deutsch.
Donnie Deutsch.
The guy who was just like. It sounded like just like this guy, because he's like, "I am so tired of the level of discourse in this country. Trump is a vulgar, disgusting pig."
Yeah,
and
okay, it's pure projection.
Way to uplift the dialogue, bro.
No, the statement I made was actually a social commentary on how some people would respond, but that's not how I would respond.
At least own it.
Jeez.
Yeah, but that's pretty funny stuff. Very unhinged.
Very unhinged.
They
say Trump's unhinged. No, these leftists, they're unhinged.
Let's go into the next thing that we got. We got an interesting. This was a survey.
This was a survey. It was done by research. It was Princeton Survey Research Associates International on behalf of creditcards.com. Now, this is from Bloomberg, so this is legit.
Thank you for that.
They wanted to see what type of people in America are the best tippers. Who leaves the best tips?
Yes.
And they found that men and Republicans are the best tippers in the country. They said that women will tip an average of 16%, while Democrats tip an average of 15%. That's compared to Republicans and men who leave an average of 20%.
Wow.
So Republicans and men, on average, tip 4 to 5% better than Democrats and women do.
That just makes sense. We're just charitable like that. Yeah.
Now, at the same time, Enzo,
I at least do 15%.
I'm
at least as good as a Democrat.
I usually do between about 18 to 20 personally, but what I was going to say was, you remember when we went to Orlando last year, there was an economist named Scott Brooks, and he was one of the featured speakers along with several of the other people that were there. Do you remember that?
The name Brooks does ring a bell.
Yeah, Scott Brooks was the name, and he was an economist. And he was the person who published a book saying that conservatives, they give more money to charity and are more charitable than liberals are.
Yes.
And he had all the data, all the documents, all the research
That
to
is
back
correct.
that up.
I've seen that data, and a lot of it has to do with churches
Yes.
in the South.
Yes.
Evil
And,
churches.
Evil churches, and and another thing about that data, if we've read the same data, I believe
believe
might
so,
be
yes.
quoting similar data, is that the people who tend to give tend to be from those areas, poor, South, church going, and are just one step above poverty, as in they know in their own background and sometime in their life where they needed that kind of help, and therefore are most likely to give it.
Right.
Because they've been in that situation and they're not that far away from being in that situation. So maybe they might be there again someday, and they would hope those same kind of people will come around. And so it's it's just community building. That's how, quite frankly, healthcare should work.
Yeah. But the takeaway that I get from this is, if you're a person who works in a restaurant and you know for a fact that a person is a male Republican, you should go to their table. And if you find that someone is a female Democrat, you should not go to their table.
Just see some
I'm
chick
just
with
talking averages, people. I'm just
We're
saying.
just talking statistically.
Yeah, I'm just statistically speaking, you're going to get a better tip from the male Republican than the female Democrat. Just saying.
Hey, if I was wearing, my Trump hat like I was the other day when we went to a restaurant, and the waiter said, nice hat, I would give them so much money. I would give them so much money.
Every time that we have gone out wearing our Trump hats, we've always
Many
done
a
very,
time.
very well.
Always.
Very, very well.
I will admit, when I was very much caught up in a presidential race, it was 2008, and we were all giving each other, at this point, the Ron Paul discount.
Yeah.
You got that sticker on your car? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. He's one of us.
Yeah, I mean, I come from a family that always tips very well, and we're Republicans, so.
I've worked jobs where I live off the tips, so I know that, if I don't give the person the money, they're going to feel very sad when they can't buy things to eat. So, I always make sure at least to do 15%, but it's usually around 20, so.
Yeah.
I always get, weirded out because there are some crazy unwritten laws here, or unwritten, social code, I should say, about tipping in America. I always seem to want to give a tip to the person who's not allowed to take it. And then there's parts where I'm just like, wait, you've got a tip jar for this job? Really? So I think some of the norms about that are kind of weird,
Yeah.
You go up to some people in HEB or something, somebody who bagged a lot of stuff for you or helped you carry
they
something
don't
to
take
the
tips
car.
here.
Yeah, it's just weird because I'm like, come on, man.
Other places they do that, though, I know.
Yeah.
But anyways, so I just wanted to add that article because I like pointing out facts that make me sound good.
Pat yourself on the back. Bob.
Hey, if you're listening to the show, we have an agenda.
Yeah, we have our agenda is, yeah, anyways.
So the next thing we want to go over was a very controversial tax that they passed in Seattle. Do you want to talk about that, Bobby?
Yes, I do. So the Seattle City Council has applied a 2.25% tax on total income above $250,000 for individuals and $500,000 for married couples that are filing their taxes. Now, keep in mind the city of Seattle is in Washington. And Washington, in their state constitution, does not collect an income tax. It actually does not allow for any state income tax to be placed. So immediately, this move by the city council, which this was unanimously passed, I might add, is expecting a lot of legal challenge immediately because of that. And it's not like it's passing it on everybody. It's specifically passing it on people who have higher incomes of $250,000 or $500,000 for married couples.
That's insane. All these people are going to do is abandon the city.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're going to move 10 minutes away to Bellevue or up there to Vancouver or Walla Walla, whatever. They can move and still be pretty well set. They don't need Seattle.
Seattle needs them. But this is like the idea of like capital flight or corporate exodus in the same sense. Like I brought this up to like socialists before. I brought it up to the Bernie Sanders crowd. I tell them like, if you raise this tax rate on the rich like in such the way that you're proposing, like they'll just go somewhere else, and they just say like, no, they won't do that. Like, okay, if I'm a person that's making a lot of money in Seattle and they pass an income tax only for people like me, like, oh. Maybe
you're gonna go to where you feel appreciated.
Yeah, like I feel like this is directly targeting me. I don't like this situation.
Yeah, but Enzo, the rich need to pay their fair share.
Oh, I was about to go into Hillary Planet podcast mode and say they do. No, they pay enough. They pay a lot in taxes.
There's nouveau, rich that think that they're so different. Because they say, "Oh, I don't mind paying this or that," and then it turns out that they do everything they can in the meantime behind the scenes to avoid that kind of stuff. I mean, because it doesn't make any sense for them. It's not what got them that far.
But like this is on top of because Seattle also passed the $15 minimum wage thing recently.
Yeah. And that's going to make unemployment even worse.
Yeah, it already is. We went over the study because they're already being impacted because they've been doing it over the last couple of years. Like, what was it on average? Like a low income earner is losing like $150 a month because of minimum wage. You throw on top of that now the rich people that would even like fund your job are going to be going because you're directly taxing them. Like.
It's like they only want street scum in that city.
I mean, I've got family that lives up in the Seattle area, and I can tell you, the city of Seattle itself has a lot of problems. I mean, it's actually pretty popular in the city of Seattle. They did a poll. They said 66% of Seattle adults are actually in favor of this.
It's because they're not paying
for
it themselves.
Everyone's not paying for it. Because, while the city, while that area is more wealthy than a lot of areas, it's not that wealthy. People aren't making $250,000 individually or $500,000 joint income. There was in the same article that we're reading, it's from the Seattle Times. There was a lady, she was a software developer, and she said, Seattle should serve everyone, not just the rich folks. And she told that to the council before the council voted. She only makes $170,000 per year, so this wouldn't even affect her. And she's stating her support from it, advocating in front of the city council, saying, yeah, let's pass this. It doesn't affect her whatsoever.
Let's all vote to charge these people more.
This is why I believe that not everyone should be allowed to vote on everything. Just saying. Like, if this doesn't affect you, like, your opinion is worthless.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you should get the vote if you, like, take more out of the system than you put in.
Oh, I agree.
Like, you should have to have something on the line. Let's actually... We have another stupid Seattle story. We're gonna save it best for last. But
which story was that?
The excrement one.
Oh yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
I'll read this one. So Seattle councilman. A Seattle councilman has criticized a plan to hose excrement off the sidewalks because it's racially insensitive. Now, when I brought this up, Cameron, while we were going over, you made me repeat just that phrasing a couple of times because it's just very surreal.
It sounds like, to me, just as somebody who hasn't read the article, that the Seattle City Councilman equates minorities with poop on the street. That's where he's coming from on this?
I mean, I've got it right here. I'll read it to you.
Yeah, you can read it.
It came from two judges that asked the city council. Okay. Judges Laura Inveen and Jim Rogers. They asked the council on Tuesday to help with the area. This was talking about specifically around like the courthouse. Requesting that the courthouse be cleaned with a daily power wash to get rid of the human waste stench, along with taking measures to remove bus stop benches in the area to decrease crime. And, they said they'd never seen it that bad. But Councilman Larry Gossett was concerned that the power washing of feces and urine off the sidewalk would bring back images of the civil rights area when black civil rights activists were hosed by local authorities, though he offered no evidence to back up his concerns.
What a tight ass. A Seattle guy thinks that pressure washing the sidewalk...
Pressure washing the poop off the sidewalk.
Brings up like 1960s Birmingham or something? I mean, what a tight ass. You're out there on the West Coast. This is Seattle, and you're afraid of the pressure wash on the sidewalk. Which, by the way, I know my mom's probably not listening, but thank you very much for bringing over the pressure wash the other day so I could clean off the back porch. You know?
So
sorry if that's insensitive. Sorry if that's insensitive to minorities.
The congressman did not immediately respond for a request of comment. So,
I'm feeling very lightheaded. I haven't been talking just because I've been laughing off mic.
yeah, you were like kneeled over laughing away from the microphone.
It's the funniest
Could,
story ever.
You could make a case for a stupid Seattle segment. Like,
Oh God, we almost could.
You
could
know?
put all the Evergreen College stuff in there too.
Evergreen College is in Seattle.
It's in Olympia. It's like 20. It's like
Olympia.
30-minute drive, but
Yeah, it's similar culturally.
same area. It's
It's a college town. Their quad is called Red Square, by the way. Did you know?
that describes it.
Little known fact.
Jesus Christ. But, yeah, this story is, like, the best story of the week because it's the worst story of the week. And, like, just, like, it's racially insensitive to clean up the poop.
You kick out all the poor. You kick out all the rich people. There's going to be more poop piling up around your courthouse.
Mm-hmm.
I had, like, a good point to make, but I couldn't stop laughing. So, like, let's just move on to something else.
I'll cover this next one here.
Do you want to talk about The Rock?
Yeah. So, if you're listening to the show, you've probably heard that a lot of people want The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, to run for president in 2020.
Yep.
And there's some people from the committee called Run the Rock 2020, based out of West Virginia, and they have submitted a file with the FEC to support a presidential bid to try to draft The Rock to run for president.
2020.
In 2020. Now, keep in mind, this is not The Rock himself saying he's running for president. I've seen a lot of people saying, The Rock is running for president. No. This is a group that has no affiliation with him, has submitted a file with the FEC saying that they support him and will be his campaign committee, if that comes up. So,
I know, he's been talking about it a little bit,
he has
though.
been talking, but isn't he conservative, though? Or isn't
He
he like
is.
Republican?
He is a Republican. I've seen him speak at the national convention before.
I would assume he probably doesn't like Trump too much. A lot of celebrity Republicans don't like Trump.
Politically, he kind of reminds me of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
He might be slightly more conservative than Arnold Schwarzenegger.
But, The Rock would not be running as a Democrat, I'll tell you that. And if
Probably
anything,
won't.
he would run as an independent candidate, which, frankly, I hope he does. Because if he runs as an independent
He'll probably
candidate,
take more from the left than the
he would take
right.
a lot of younger leftist votes away from the left. Because, those are people that probably supported Bernie to begin with. And they're not going to vote for Trump. Like, there's no bother even trying to get them to vote for Trump.
Yeah, when you point it that way, like, I was against this Rock for president stuff. Like, yeah, I want The Rock to run for president. I'm still voting for Trump.
I will
but
fully
like,
support The Rock for president. I'll even donate to his freaking campaign because I know exactly how this is going to turn out. He'll get like 3 or 4% of the overall vote if he makes it to the actual general.
But those will
election.
generally be leftist.
And those will all be leftist votes, and so like that just helps Trump even more.
Why would they be leftist votes?
I know, no. See,
'Cause these were younger people like our generation.
I think younger people, but I don't know. The Rock's very popular.
he is.
If it was Rock versus Trump, like, I would be pretty
I'd be
afraid,
scared.
really.
I'd be scared. But in order for that to happen, he'd have to run as a Democrat, and I sincerely doubt he would do that. So it would have to be independent, and
So, like, The Rock versus Warren
like The
versus
Rock
Trump in a
versus-
triple threat.
yeah.
I'm a huge, like, WWE fan,
But-
if you don't know.
What if, imagine this, what if Trump uses The Rock to help his own campaign? What if he's like, I want The Rock to be like part of my cabinet?
See,
Or what if he's like, I want The Rock to run as an independent?
Yeah. What if like Trump is like, I want a coalition in this campaign. I want like the Republican Party plus The Rock.
See, here's the thing, though. The Rock, he's got experience as a professional wrestler, so he's good at, like, cutting promos and stuff. Like, he's going to be cutting some bad promos on Donald Trump. Like, I don't necessarily want that. Like, everyone's going to be sharing those videos, like, The Rock attacking Donald Trump is just like, dude, I'm not putting Donald Trump. Yeah, I think it is kind of crazy he's the president, even though I voted for him. I wouldn't put it against this country to put The Rock in the office.
Yeah. I want, what I really want to see though?
I don't think he has any experience for anything.
No. What I really want to see is I want to see Trump as president go to a WWE thing
again
with The Rock, and then do like a celebrity tag team duo, like as he's president of the United States.
See,
and they should gang up against a progressive liberal.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the progressive liberal
Appalachian wrestling circuit or something like that.
Yeah, I sent that to my friend who's a professional wrestler. He might be listening. Sometimes he listens, but yeah, could really schedule like a really big money match, President Trump alongside his opponent in the upcoming election, The Rock, in a tag team match, like the same way he did when he came back for WrestleMania 28, where he tag team with John Cena.
Yeah.
Against R-Truth. I could esoteric WWE stuff all day. We could really build up a lot of money.
Yeah. And speaking of building up a lot of money, we don't have an article for this, but I did read this morning.
Yeah.
Last month, in the month of June, Trump's re-election campaign raised $16 million.
$16 million? Yeah. That's a lot of money.
That's more than the Democrat Party itself is raising per month.
I know, yeah. They've been doing really bad.
Yeah, so.
But
I in general, I would think that, this has the potential to hurt us, but if we can get it going right. Do
you legitimately think The Rock will run for president in 2020?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely
I don't
not.
think he's going to run. And if he does run, I think it'll be for some little tiny thing, and then he'll drop out.
Yeah,
But I don't think in that, I'm going to describe that as when you say run for president, I'm going to mean be serious about it, want to take it all the way from the beginning, campaign all over the place, make ads, try to get into the debates.
Because he wouldn't be the first movie president.
No, he wouldn't. He wouldn't.
See, my thing is just he's the highest paid movie.
He's the most popular actor
movie star.
Right now.
Yeah, he's got a good setup. I wouldn't really want to trade that for the White House.
Yeah, he doesn't need to get rid of his lifestyle to be president. To even try to do it. I want to see The Rock make movies. I like The Rock as an actor.
Okay, so here's another idea, and we didn't put this down actually this week, but Kid Rock is running for Senate in Michigan.
Right.
The Rock could also run. Kid Rock running for Senate, The Rock running for Senate. We could just have no politicians anymore. We could have only entertainers. We got our president. Had a reality TV show.
That's essentially where democracy goes down.
This is the direction that we're heading.
Anyways,
I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's pretty funny to me.
Yeah, no. Well,
do you want to talk about this Olympic stuff?
I do want to mention this Olympic story very, very quickly. So, if for those of you who haven't really been following, there's been the committees that try to get the Olympic Games to try to come to different cities. They spend years and years trying to, get all that stuff done to even get it to their city. The 2024 Olympics, they have not yet made a decision as to what city it would be in. And they've come down to the final two options are Paris or Los Angeles, California. Now, for the last couple of years, I've myself been a big supporter of wanting it to go to Los Angeles. I want it to be back in the U.S. It hasn't been in the U.S. for a very long time. We had the Winter Olympics in 2004, I believe. Or was it? No, I'm sorry,
2004 was Greece.
2002, we had the Winter Olympics. Last time we had it in the U.S. was in 1996 in Atlanta. We had the Summer Olympics there. So, by then, this would be 20, almost 30 years since the Summer Olympics would be held in the United States. And Summer Olympics are a lot more popular, obviously, than the Winter Olympics. So if you really want to make America great again, get the Olympics back. I love the Olympics. I love it. And, this is kind of going off as a side tangent, but one of the people that is a big supporter of the, LA 2020, or I'm sorry, LA 2024 movement is a swimmer. And the fact that her name is completely getting out of my mind. She grew up on the same street as my dad when he was living in California. He was 5 or 6 years older than she is, but she became an Olympic swimmer and she won several gold medals. And she's now one of their advocates. And the reason why I really bring this up is because Trump himself actually tweeted earlier this week saying, I fully support the movement to get the Olympics here in LA in 2024. So they now have support from the highest level of the United States government to get the Olympics to LA in 2024.
We should try and get it.
And I want us to try to get it. Paris don't deserve it. We definitely, we haven't had it a long time. imagine what the U.S. can pull off for the Olympics. And the thing is, being in L.A., all your venues are already there. They'd say that they only have to build like 2 or 3 things. Compared to like every other city nearly goes bankrupt trying to host the thing. A city like Los Angeles is already suited for the Olympics. It's ready for it. All you got to do is just get it.
Yeah.
They had it in 1984, right? No.
I forget. I forget where it was each
88
year.
or 84, I can't remember.
But the 2020 Olympics, Summer Olympics, are in Tokyo, so. Yeah.
I think we should have it up in Alaska and co-host it with Russia.
I mean, Russia has the World Cup 2020.
Yeah, that's right, they do.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, let's get on to the next story, because we're kind of...
Okay, do you want to talk about Twitter or alcohol? Let's do one before current your college craziness.
If I had to choose between these, I would talk about alcohol.
Alcohol?
Yeah.
Okay, I would have picked Twitter. Let's talk about alcohol.
Then let's do Twitter. Let's do Twitter.
Okay, so Donald Trump is known for using Twitter a lot. I don't use Twitter. Bobby does.
I love Twitter.
But a lot of people like to interact with Donald Trump on Twitter, and Donald Trump doesn't want to interact with them, so he blocks them. And they got really sad because Trump blocked them, so they're suing Donald Trump now for blocking them on Twitter.
Yeah, anyone who's ever looked at a Trump tweet and looked at the responses knows it's always the exact same people. And literally a lot of these people are only famous because of the fact that they just troll Trump on Twitter. And they'll get thousands and thousands of likes in their comments, making the same jokes. Oh, you got small hands, or no one likes you, or you suck, that sort of stuff. And it almost is borderline harassment to some of the stuff that they do tweet him. So all he does is use the block button that's there. And now they're trying to say that, oh, you're violating my free speech rights. I can't write on Twitter, but if anybody...
You can block anything you want on your own profile, on any social media platform whatsoever. Whoever thinks they've got a case here. This obviously is like an 18, 20, maybe even younger than that.
Oh, no, the people that...
No, this is like a class action lawsuit.
Yeah, this is
They're saying that they're by Trump blocking them, they're like... He's interfering with their freedom of speech.
Oh, these are serious adults.
Yeah.
I can tell you one. Thing that.
No, there was a really good article I was reading earlier. I could probably pull it up just to reference it. But like, there was this lady who was talking about her entire career was being built up around getting in there and tweeting back at Trump and getting part of all the interactions that would come with every new Trump tweet. And then Trump blocked her, and she was seeing repercussions in her career. So now she's a part of this lawsuit.
Yeah, and I mean I can tell you one thing: this lawsuit's not going to go anywhere. That should be pretty obvious to anyone. Even if it was to go to court, what grounds do they really have that that's blocking their First Amendment rights to freedom of speech?
There's multiple people though that are behind this.
I know, but they're all retards.
There are lots of retarded people.
Yeah.
And plus, all it means is they can't look at his tweets. You just make a sock account to look at his tweets. You can literally just...
If you don't log in, you can look at them.
You can not log in, you can look at his tweets. You can still reply to people's tweets even if they've blocked you. You can still do that. All you have to do is just get the link to the tweet and post that link in your tweet and boom, then tweet it. And, there's easily get around that. It's not that hard. So all these people are trying to do is just... They're trying to get Trump in court to try to say, oh, no, we got him, see? They're just trying to make life hard for him.
See?
And,
I couldn't imagine, I got my lawsuit with Trump, and, I wouldn't want to tell people about it, because personally, just having, a brain, I'd feel embarrassed that I'd be trying to make this case. Mm-hmm. But, there's people out there that are making this case, and, they are telling people about it.
And they feel that they're resisting.
Yeah, they feel like they're doing something.
And they're trying to say that it's a violation to suppress... It's a...
he's trying to
suppress dissent.
Suppress dissent.
It's no, it's trying to just say, you people are retarded, stop blowing up my mentions.
Get off my phone.
I mean, we've said this on the show. Trump's Twitter account is the most valuable Twitter account in the planet.
Oh, yeah.
A single tweet.
Most valuable social media account in the world.
Some people have more followers than he does, but his is definitely more valuable. A single tweet by Trump can change human history at this point. It almost has.
You put it that way, but yeah.
Think about it. It almost has at some points. Trump could easily say something, and it would just completely. It could change the course of human history.
That Covfefe tweet changed the culture.
No, but I mean, imagine if Trump was to tweet something like, Imagine if Trump was to tweet something like,
Heinz ketchup sucks. Everybody should stop eating Heinz ketchup.
yeah. No.
Can you imagine what that would do?
Imagine if Trump... No, but seriously, imagine if Trump tweeted something along the lines of, like, imagine if he really was as unhinged as people think he was. And he would say something like, we should just nuke Russia right now for interfering in our election. Like,
yeah, that'd start the war.
Talk like that could start a war.
Yeah.
And, so, yeah,
Dude, when Trump talks, people listen. During the campaign, when he was saying no more Oreos, I stopped.
I haven't bought
I
Oreos
listened,
since
yeah.
then.
I don't know. I wasn't aware of that he had a thing against Oreos.
Nabisco is sending a factory to Mexico instead of keeping it in the United States. He said, like, no more Oreos. And I was just like, okay, Mr. President. He wasn't president then, but I'm like, okay, Donald Trump, I won't eat any more Oreos. I've had, like, a couple since he's been president, but, like, I stopped. I listened. If he did the same thing with the ketchup, yeah, I wouldn't use Heinz. I would admit that, like, that's stupid and absurd, but I still think it's funny to listen.
I mean, we're shills for Trump. We do whatever he says, so.
We are shills. Let's go into current year's college craziness, though.
The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic. You're fucking a white male!
The assumption that women are naturally better caregivers is part of patriarchy.
Die, cis, scum.
You will not divide us! You will not divide us! You will not divide us! You will not divide us!
It's time for some current year college craziness.
Current year college craziness, the segment of the show that always keeps on giving, because there's always crazy stuff happening in colleges. The first story we got this week is out of King's College London, where they're replacing all the portraits of white scholars with women and ethnic minorities. You got the stuff on this, Bobby?
Yes, I do. So they're trying to they're trying to swap portraits of some of its founding fathers with a wall of diversity amid pressure from students, says one of their deans. And they're trying to get rid of the pictures of their founding fathers, their white founding fathers who have beards specifically. Because, why they want to get rid of the ones with beards?
Why?
Because they said the current classroom environment is too intimidating for ethnic minorities.
And because people founded the college had beards?
Yeah, they said that the faculty should not just be filled with busts of 1920s bearded men, but rather more modern, diverse scholars, so that the institute feels less alienating to their ethnic minority students.
What? But the institution exists because of those guys.
Yes.
So
not having those guys.
Are they removing them so that they can replace them with other scholars who have nothing to do with King's College?
Yes, exactly. They want to replace it with modern day scholars that are, more diverse. Exactly. Yeah.
Start with a killer. Man.
Yeah, you shut us down. We couldn't say anything.
Yeah, they said that meanwhile, teaching materials such as diagrams of the human anatomy will be changed to feature a range of ethnic groups rather than just the standard white male.
Oh.
I thought that all our bodies were the same, though.
Yeah,
it wouldn't be different parts.
We're talking anatomy here.
Yeah.
They want a bigger, blacker dick on their poster or something?
Blacker dick.
I mean, sure, but you're still learning anatomy, which, by the way, gives me hope for higher academia to actually study the anatomy and realize that there's only two of them.
Yeah, and there's a professor there who's leading this effort. His name is Professor Lehman. And he says, a great deal of medical psychological research has been of white male North American or European students. So increasingly we try and broaden it to include more recent research from Asia, Africa, and other parts of the world.
The thing,
why do you got to take down the pictures, though?
The thing with the pictures, it's just they're talking about they're alienating these minority students that are there. It's kind of alienating to the university to disassociate yourself with who created the university.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like more alienating to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's
what gave the prestige to this university in the first place? Why is it a place where people from all around the world want to come to?
And also they're complaining about like white males, like they're in the United Kingdom, like it's the home of the British people, like they are white people.
Anyways,
these stories are always.
It's all about symbolism too. It isn't about results. It isn't about reality. It's all about somebody's feelings and symbolism.
Always.
So let's go into the next one. This is out of Pomona College, one of the favorite universities on the segment. The students there are calling the firing of an anti-white LGBT director there an act of violence. You got the stuff on that, Bobby?
Yes. Dr. Jonathan Higgins was terminated shortly after being hired to lead the school's Queer Resource Center, following the disclosure of his comments. In one tweet, he asserted that, quote, police are meant to serve and protect white supremacy. And in another, he noted that he is, quote, automatically wary of white gays and well-meaning white women. And he was then fired because of those comments, those tweets that he made. But now the group of students is calling the recent firing of that professor an act of violence. Violence against their community.
Literally, like physically, it's not. But okay.
Yeah,
anything else?
Yeah, I mean that pretty much is. They said that. They said we would like to state in no uncertain terms that the firing of Dr. Higgins is a gross injustice and serves as an act of violence and silencing of queer black voices. They said in an open letter addressed to multiple people before issuing a list of several demands.
Oh, they always have the demands. Always the demands.
Including, quote, a carefully thought out plan for addressing white fragility and white supremacy at the school.
So that essentially they're saying, like, we're going to grossly insult you and you have to take it. If you say anything to the otherwise, you're just exuding white fragility.
They also had some evidence to back up their claim.
They're calling the firing an act of violence, but they want the white fragility to be addressed.
Yes. And also,
just checking.
Yeah, they have some more evidence to back up their claim. They said in regards to this Professor Higgins, they said his lived experience as a queer black man, noting that white gay men have become the primary enactors of violence toward queer people of color. So they're saying that queer people of color are being...
I don't even think that's like statistically correct.
They're saying that white gay men are the ones who are enacting violence on queer people of color. Then what does, like, the straight people have anything to do with that? Like, they're trying to go after, like, white fragility and white supremacy. These people, like, they want to change your lives.
I think this goes back to about 15, 20 years ago. These people in academia wanted to link the black civil rights movement to the gay rights movement. And they clearly aren't the same. And, I mean, they try so hard with this stuff.
Well, it's intersectionality is the thing.
Just like the Muslims with the gays. Like there's some sort of common cause there. I mean, it's just, wow, it's pie in the sky. I don't know where these people live. I don't know who they interact with on a day-to-day basis, and think that it's somehow this resembles reality. I think they're just upset that reality doesn't meet their idealized standards, and they want to force reality to conform to these idealized standards.
Well, they concluded their statement by saying, "We refuse to sit idly by as Dr. Higgins, and by extension, countless black and brown, queer and trans students, faculty and staff is denied his humanity and publicly shamed." Keep in mind, what he tweeted was, police are meant to serve and protect white supremacy, and he's automatically wary of white gays and well-meaning white women. And he's being publicly shamed, and that's bad, because he's a queer, black, trans woman.
Yeah, they aren't allowed to have repercussions for their statements.
Of course not.
That would be like racism or something.
Saying anything about it is an act of violence.
The thing is just like, you know, it goes back to the whole thing of like SJWs are always projecting. they talk about white fragility, but they're the fragile ones saying that someone being fired is violence. But they're trying to equate that to their opposition.
Yeah.
It's like really weird pathologization. Like,
I mean, even if like people are standing outside in the heat and you bring them a bottle of water, like that's violence.
Like this kind of thinking like is only indicative of like mental illness in like a lot of Marxist books.
No, I mean you can literally look at these people and you can see that they are
like when they say that like white gays are like the biggest like attackers of gays of color, like that's not
queer
even,
people of color.
It's queer people of color. It's just like the biggest like cause of violence against black people is black people themselves, in the same that way that the biggest perpetrator of crimes against white people is also white people. So like that statement's just not even correct.
Has this person ever been to or heard of Uganda, for instance?
No.
He's not aware of places where you could get lashed for being gay by other, I mean, once again, I mean, they use these words like violence and aggression, and it's like they've never seen what those two things really look like.
Well, actually, that brings me back to a moment where I've actually witnessed this firsthand, where people call like words violent and stuff. It was the Wendy's protest.
That's what I was referring to earlier, yeah.
Yeah, where we showed up to a Wendy's protest here in San Marcos. They were protesting like...
They wanted to get the air conditioning put in.
The air conditioning.
It was the conditions. It was about the working conditions,
but they also wanted a $15 minimum
fight
wage
for 15 type of group. Yeah.
So like they like freaked the hell out because we showed up wearing Trump hats.
We brought them bottles of water.
Yeah. So like I was allowed to stay afterwards, and I was given like a talking to about stuff. But like this
were
one
they lecturing you?
Because they know who I am. But like this chick like freaks out. And towards this one guy that was organizing, who was talking to me, and she's just like, "Those guys, their hats were violent. They were like violent by wearing those hats around us." And like the dude just completely was like, "Yeah, they were." And, like it was strange to be witnessing in front of me people talking about the presence of something that's like scary to them, like people supporting Donald Trump as violence.
Or not even. You just come up wearing a hat that says a slogan that they don't like on it.
Yeah. I think the justification was just like, oh, well, there's people here that could be deported, and like that message means like sending them to a place where they would be killed if they went back. So like, yeah, it was violence. I can't make any sense of it, but yeah, these people do exist, and like I know who these are firsthand, so it's very common in colleges to meet people like this.
As somebody who's seen violence, I'm very careful when using that term, and when people talk about acts of aggression, it's very obvious what it looks like, and it's very obvious when it's not aggression. And it's just unfortunate that people who are aspiring adults are at that point mentally, linguistically, that it doesn't show much hope for them being able to adjust to reality. Again, these are people that need reality to adjust to them and not the other way around.
And like I've said before, that's why I don't believe everyone deserves the right to vote. But let's move on to the next story.
Yeah, so the next story that we have here, we got some feminist geography professors that are saying that citations perpetuate white heteromasculinity. Do you got the stuff on that, Bobby?
Yes. 2 feminist geography professors recently wrote an article for an academic journal arguing that citations in scholarly articles contribute to, quote, white heteromasculinity by ignoring research by women and people of color. And the authors say that white men tend to be cited in much higher numbers than people from other backgrounds, but they dismiss the idea that this is due to the relative predominance of white male geographers.
This is just academic laziness. This is just absolute garbage. This is probably they only took the time to look at the citation, look up the fact that it's a guy's name that's an author, and be offended. They didn't look at the validity of the statement being made, any fact checking whatsoever. Just the guy's name is Arthur on this, so I'm oppressed.
Yeah, this was one Rutgers University professor, Carrie Mott, and University of Waterloo professor Danielle Cockayne.
Is Rutgers Ivy League?
Yeah, I think
No.
It's like a step below it, though.
Yeah.
It's pretty prestigious, though.
As far as Philadelphia goes, you've got Temple, which services most of the city of Philadelphia people, and you've got Jersey Rutgers, which is right on the kind of suburbs outside of Philadelphia. So south, not sort of that Jersey that's connected to New York, but that Jersey that's connected to Philly.
Right.
And so, there's some highbrow people there, but I wouldn't call it Ivy League at all. But it is definitely more prestigious than, say, Temple.
Right. And they published that article last month in Feminist Journal of Geography.
I don't know that
apparently
existed.
that exists.
I should try to read that sometime.
Yeah, but they also suggest that citation can serve as a, quote, feminist and anti-racist technology of resistance if references are chosen with the explicit intent of promoting those authors and voices we want to carry forward.
That's extremely intellectual in the sense of you only want to project
exactly
people on the basis of identity as opposed to content. It's pretty hilarious. Do you got some of the other stuff on this, or?
Yeah, they said that by citing them, it's an intersectional system of oppression describing ongoing processes that bolster the status of those who are white, male, able-bodied, economically privileged, heterosexual, and cisgendered. Which, is pretty much your average, geography.
I didn't know geography was that hardcore.
Every nation's very, very active in the geography
department. Geography is like maps.
The authors claim that this oppressive tradition contributes to the marginalization of women, people of color, and those othered through white heteromasculine hegemony, asserting that particular voices and bodies are persistently left out of the conversation altogether. But remember, they dismissed it. They dismissed that notion that it's because the other group is just overrepresented.
Well, here they are on Trump Republic Radio, getting fair and equal time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
we're seriously delving into what do you think these people are thinking? And maybe I should try the Journal of blah 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 feminist. Do they even know this is going on right now?
No. Well, they'd be pretty mad if they knew we were probably talking about them, because we're probably contributing to heterosexuality or I don't know, white supremacy.
But by covering them, we're oppressing them.
I mean, we're doing it in a negative light because we're right wingers.
But remember, by doing that, it serves as a form of resistance.
I am silencing them by talking about them.
Yeah.
You take away their platform by giving them the platform.
Exactly. But yeah, these people crazy. So
I love intersectionality so much because I know how to talk the news talk really well because I've been in college for a while, and I've written papers where I talk this way. I'm really good at it.
What does my professor want to read?
Oh no, I've played that game before. If I was to be a leftist, I would be the best one. Okay, I would be so good at this.
Yeah.
But also as a white male, I'd understand my place is to be in the background because I want to give space, not take space. So yeah. But no, I love Donald Trump. I don't care about this garbage.
So let's skip the article that was there and go to the Harvard article that we have.
The Harvard one,
yeah.
Okay. So Harvard is proposing expelling students who join social clubs. You got the stuff?
I got the stuff. A faculty committee wants Harvard University to dramatically ramp up its assault on, quote, unrecognized single-gender social organizations by eliminating all fraternities, sororities, and similar organizations by 2022. The school previously sought to crack down on the discriminatory social clubs by preventing members from holding leadership positions on campus or qualifying for Rhodes or Marshall scholarships. So they literally want to like shut down sororities and fraternities because they're like all male or all female.
Yep.
Yep.
And they'll just allow sororities.
I guess. They released a 22-page report.
I don't know.
It's too long.
What are you allowed to have?
Oh my God, listen to the name of this thing. It's the Committee on the Unrecognized Single-Gender Social Organizations.
Does that include the brotherhood that meets up and does their prayers on campus 5 times a day?
Yes. No, of course not. No, because that would be racist.
Okay.
Right. But it's advocate.
I love confusing those people
exactly.
with the intersectionality.
Yeah.
you can really get them.
Oh no, yeah. Really once you understand like the flaws in intersectionality, you can drop some like really good, like double think or like cognitive dissonance. Like because Islam is a super like gender segregated religion, but they're like that's like number 1 right now. So, but yeah, go in the article.
I was gonna say a lot of those are referred to as final clubs, which are the unofficial single-gendered student groups that the administrators have now deemed as discriminatory. Now, if any of you have seen the movie The Social Network, which was about how Mark Zuckerberg created Facebook, his entire goal was to get into a final club. And that was his motivating factor into creating what became Facebook. So, if you think about it, how many more awesome websites are we going to not have created? Because people aren't going to be motivated to join these clubs.
Probably 0.
Exactly. But yeah, the fact that that students who participate in such clubs face suspension or even expulsion now as a part of effort to phase out the groups by 2022.
So we can't have discriminatory groups. Like, okay, so are they doing away with cum laude or
a lot of them
National
have.
Honor Society? Is that
have.
discriminatory? You know, it's like for really smart people.
See, I'm like totally down with like discrimination. Like, yeah, it's a
discriminate between a red light and a green light, don't you?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
No, my thing is just like anything of value you discriminate with. Like love, for example. I discriminate in how I give love. It's not something I give to everyone. It has value because I discriminate with it. Like,
yes.
Like they make discrimination to be like this super evil mean word that like anything that even like discriminates in like a very like soft way that doesn't even hurt people is like evil, but like discrimination's everywhere. You're doing it all the time.
I know. And it's like with the same way with people not exercising good judgment because they're afraid of sounding judgmental. It's just it works the same way.
Let's get into the last one. This one's a freaking doozy. Okay, so Cornell University has created an app to help illegal aliens fight wage theft.
The Workers Institute at Cornell University has been assisting with the development of a mobile app intended to help day laborers, many of them illegal immigrants, report wage theft and register workplace complaints. They said a preliminary version of the app was launched in November, but the developers plan to make changes and improvements after the pilot program ends this fall. And they are trying to create the app. It's called the Journaler app. It was recently showcased at the New York City Council's Rapid Response Lab by Worker Institute research specialist Legna C. Cabrera and Manuel Castro, who are the executive directors of the New Immigrant Community Empowerment, which is also called NICE.
Oh.
Wait, so they let brown people into Cornell now?
I don't know.
I know an Algerian that goes to Cornell.
Oh, well, Algerians aren't all that brown. There's a lot of...
He's pretty brown.
Yeah, they're Arabic-ish.
But they're allowing those day laborers, who many are illegal immigrants, to allow them to rate employers, report their wages, and post pictures of unsafe job sites.
They're not...
You know what? I support this. I fully support this. You know why? Because all you got to do is have ICE just like look through the thing and be like, oh, there we go. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. Let's go. We're done.
Manuel, we see that you've been having a problem with some people. We thought that we'd send a representative down personally just to talk. It's like they're not even supposed to be working to begin with.
No. And many are illegal immigrants. So, like, literally, all you got to do is just, like, follow that thing and then boom. There's some deportations right there. So, you know what?
But this is like an initiative from the university.
Yeah, it's
Which
directly
is funny,
from
too, because Cornell is like super, super WASP.
Really?
Yeah, totally. All right, so you know one Algerian that went there.
I do.
And we know there's definitely 2 Latinos.
Oh, I also know like an Asian lady that goes to Cornell.
But they're part of the white power structure, Enzo.
Oh.
Okay,
By
so
going
she
to a
doesn't
historic-
count.
Enzo,
She's a libertarian, so that's like white supremacy.
Double power structure.
And so you see, by
Asian
going to a
and
historically white
libertarian.
university, you're helping white supremacy. You know that, right?
I must be helping all the time.
Yeah, your existence is helping white supremacy.
Oops.
You need to kill yourself. That's the end goal. You understand that? Let's move on.
Kill yourself. Moving on.
Kill yourself, Enzo. Let's go into the break, and then when we'll come back, we'll get into the stuff that Cameron wants to talk about as far as the local stuff. We'll go international, and we'll get out of here.
Hey, Patriots and Warriors, this is Bass Stickman, and you are listening to Trump Republic Radio.
We were minding our own business, trying to celebrate the free speech that you think is so important, and you came to our rally and you chanted, "You're fags. Go home. You have low testosterone."
And he's been on many very prominent right-wing shows talking about his cause, and that would be Simon Roach of the Sadelanders.
Hello, Enzo. Hello, Robert. Thank you very much for having me. Let me say this. It has been my privilege. You won't see it from my perspective, so I'm not going to, it's pointless me trying to persuade you. But you will, let me just tell you, I'm very grateful for this opportunity. I appreciate it very much. And if you'd like me to come on again at any time, hopefully there will be fewer difficulties and challenges, and I won't mess you around as I have done this time, for which I'm very sorry. But I would love to come on again. Anytime you ask, I'll be there.
Please call China and tell them we're all counting on China. Tell the president we became friends for 2 days, that he was great.
You really have to walk me through this here, because I am not familiar with so much of the terminology. Like, for instance, can you shed some light on what is a cuck?
A cuck.
How much money will you make today banging that drum for Soros? Soros must pay you good money to bang that drum. Whoa. Hey, do you play ping pong?
Hey, welcome back from the break. We're going to get into some international news, but first, we're going to go over some stuff that Cameron actually has to talk to us about, what's going on here in the local area as far as politics.
Thanks, Enzo. Yeah, I just wanted to give you all some updates of what's going on here in the county, and just yesterday talked to our representative Jason Isaac in the State House, who
here in Hayes County.
Yes. He's out of Jerpin Springs. He had a little constituent sort of citizen membership or citizen engagement breakfast yesterday, and it was pretty interesting because he's very seriously talking about capping property taxes. Not only, now that's just, of course he was hearing people and their views about that, but he was talking about taking that issue to the Capitol and having a statewide capping of property taxes, or at least a certain threshold that if a county appraisal district meets that threshold, that they won't be able to tax anymore. So I'm excited about that. And by the way, Tuesday, the 18th, there is going to be a rally at the Capitol for property tax restrictions, and well, to be truthful, it's these people who are going to be meeting there at the Capitol are for getting rid of property taxes altogether, which I favor. I think consumption-based tax is a nice thing. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, personally, I think property taxes aren't useful in the sense that it discourages property ownership. Like, once you own property, why does the government need money from you for it? I mean, you're the one that's maintaining the property, so it's not like they're doing anything to, like, up the value of your property.
True. And, I've always thought it's just fair. It's more fair to tax consumption than it would be to tax property. People are afraid that under the Robin Hood scheme that, obviously poorer districts would miss out or somehow be underfunded. But, I mean, when you look at how much consumption, how much your average paycheck for a low-wage worker goes back into consumption, seems like they would have pretty well-funded districts as well. But, it all depends on your priorities. I mean, I think liberty and ownership is the number one priority, and I think that education, too, is important. It just depends on how you go about funding education. I think there's better ways. Also, our state senator, Donna Campbell, I've been looking for, more things to say about her recently. Haven't always been impressed by her in the past, but can safely say that she will be doing great stuff for us in the special session coming up here starting on Tuesday. And she is entering legislation, or I should say offering legislation to restrict city governments on how they annex. They want to give people in these communities that would potentially be annexed by a larger city a say in it. So this would be good legislation to support if you are one of those types of people who go to the Capitol or, want to call around offices and make your voice heard. Restricting forced annexation is a great idea. And there's also in this special session going to be legislation offered to try and crack down on mail-in voter fraud. That has been a problem throughout the state in more places than others, in some places more than others. But working towards getting the integrity of the vote, keeping that sound is very important, and we have had problems with that in Hays County.
We had the issue with the votes not even being counted, or just not even being accounted for. What was it, like 1,000?
1,800 plus, yeah.
Yeah. I was at the meeting where they brought the people that were showing off the different voting systems.
Yeah.
They were doing the demonstrations, and they had, in the lobby there, is at the VFW here, the entire list of all like the unaccounted for votes, where it says like, I think it said I know I wasn't on the list, my vote counted, but there was people in that meeting that weren't counted.
Yeah.
And like, they had a show of hands, who wasn't counted, who saw themselves on the list. It was probably a third of the people in the room.
Well, it's what's strange about that is that they've tried to parlay this into what they said was basically human error. Will Conley, County Commissioner himself, said this was human error. But now they've turned around and said, as a result, we're looking into getting new voting machines, which, by the way, don't have an electronic audit or don't have a paper audit trail.
Yeah.
So,
which you want.
I just thought it was strange that in the same Commissioner's Court meeting, he went about saying this was human error, and by the way, this won't happen again because we'll have this HART electronic machine that has no paper audit trail. So, that flies in the face of common sense, and flies in the face of the wishes of the people here in the county, and it flies in the face of item 49 on the Republican Party platform, which favors paper ballots, and if not, at the very least, a paper audit trail to be able to print those out of the computer, so you can have a matching identification number to each vote that each person sort of ticket that you get there can match, and you can go through and check later. And they do this in other places, where they sort of outside the polling place post it there, all the votes, and you can go see what your little 4-digit number was that you used, and go look and make sure that your vote was on that receipt. It just makes it's peace of mind.
Because I know here in Hays County, like you look at the 1,800 votes that weren't counted, I mean, that changes the results of races that we had.
It did.
So
it's kind of a big deal, yeah. So here they've gone with something that they knew was human error, and they've dove full on into a whole other can of worms that arguably there's state Supreme Court dealings that are still pending. There's still a case pending against this company, Hart, that doesn't provide a paper audit trail. By the way, these commissioners who, they convened a Hays County special commission on this, and they could have all recommended to have a different company that does offer a paper audit trail. But this consisted of the Hays County tax assessor collector, the head of the Republican Party, and the head of the Democratic Party. And whenever they all get together, they seem to agree that these little steps just aren't worth it. So we do have a problem with that. We also have a problem coming up with voting centers, which are these places where you don't even know where the hell you live. You don't know who you're voting for, but you can just stumble into these places and there's like 30 ballots for you to choose from. You just say, oh, it's more convenient for me to go here because even though it's not in my precinct, it's on my way to work or something like that. You increase the chances for human error because the person who's handing out those ballots will have more of a hard time giving you the proper ballot. So we have had a history in this county of people being given improper ballots in the first place, and God help them, the voters not even recognizing that they have the wrong ballot because they're not looking down ballot far enough and recognizing the names. They see if it's a big race, president or senator or something like that, but they're not noticing that the constable precinct is wrong and all of these kind of little, offices are not the right ballot. So those are part of the reason why other ballots get thrown out as well. So yeah, voter integrity is a big deal. I want it to be addressed. A lot of good people are working on it in this county, but there's even some people who are going to take that to the State House during special session. So I'm excited for special session. Some good things could be happening. Also with Jason Isaac, he's looking at getting the government out of deducting the union dues. We say union loosely in this state. It's the teacher administration, the teacher association. Of which I was actually a member for 5 years, a number of years ago, and was even a local rep. And I myself, after talking to him about it, don't see any problem in this whatsoever. You could get it automatically deducted from your credit card. But somehow, teachers have gotten together and decided that this would be an attack on them if the government no longer automatically deducted these dues for the association from their check. Don't see how that's an issue with anybody. I think it'd just be a good housekeeping thing for the government to have one less thing to have to do there in that regard, in any regard. So I just wanted to touch on that. Those are some issues facing us as a county, and coming up here at the special session, which starts on Tuesday. Other than that, I do want to put out the call to all people in this area who want to be part of the Hill Country Young Republicans to get with us. Check us on Facebook, our Facebook page, Hill Country Young Republicans. Basically anybody up until 40. There's quite a few people who've, are in college, but not necessarily college Republicans, or some people who've already graduated and seeing the crazy world out there of tax returns and everything, and wondering what the hell to do about it. Well, we're a group that's advocating for people like you, and we're going to have a social coming up here at Kent Black's Barbecue, July 22nd. You guys been to Kent Black's before?
I have.
Yes, I have.
What do you think of it compared to Hays County Barbecue or San Marcos Barbecue? Because, I don't know, I mean, we're getting more options around here as far as barbecue goes. It used to be slim pickings around here. It used to be Few Shacks, and that was it. And Few Shacks is...
not as good.
I mean, I personally like San Marcos Barbecue, but then again, that's just where I tend to go. I haven't really eaten at a lot of the places around here in terms of barbecue, but I like all of them. But
Cool.
I personally prefer San Marcos barbecue.
Right
Camp,
on.
Camp Black's is good. I like it.
I think San Marcos and Hays County Barbecue both do superior sausage. They roll their own sausage there, and there's almost no fillers in it whatsoever. It's really good. I like Kent Black's for the brisket and their turkey. They do those things better.
Their brisket is very good. Look at that.
And they know how to cut it real well. They just, you can tell it hasn't been sitting around for a while. They pull it out, and they're like, you want moist or lean? And, what we're basically going to do there is we're going to provide all the sides. You can go buy your meats, and we're going to have, a booth. It's not going to be a whole lot of politicking. It's going to be some country music. There's a group there that has a huge catalog of covers they know, but also have some original stuff. So there will be music there. Going forward, there'll be some volunteer opportunities. We're trying to get together in August, one of them over in Dunbar Park. And one thing I should mention also is the Texas Young Republicans Convention coming up in August, mid-August. And by the way, we are being underwritten by some very generous benefactors here who believe in what we're doing, want more people to be involved, and we want delegates. On paper, we actually have pretty big membership. I'd say out of the regional groups, probably somewhere between third, fourth, or fifth biggest in the state. But as you know how those things go. These things are tabulated by who's on your membership list, or who's on your email list and things like that. We want to get people active, and there's people who are willing to help you out in terms of anybody out there who wants to be involved. Again, the dues are only $10. They're $10 across the board. That's not. It used to be more complicated than that. Oh, if you're under 25, it's only $10. If you're over 25, between 25 and 30, it's $15, and then it's 20, and then it's 25. So it's like encouraging young people, And we just thought it'd be easier and more fair to just do $10 across the board for membership. But if you're interested in being a delegate, talk to us, get in touch with us. The convention comes up mid-August, and there's people who have been willing to give us financial support for that. So I thank them, the Wittenberger family, Walt Smith, Pastor Walt Smith, some people who've been very encouraging. New Braunfels Republican women. There's good things happening on a regional level, and I just wanted to make that report to y'all. Any questions about Hill Country Republicans or anything else coming up here soon locally?
No, last year me and Bobby were actually delegates for Hays County Young Republicans for the Young Republicans convention at the Capitol. We were actually, there voting along. How long were we there voting for the Constitution changes?
Oh, it was like all day, several hours.
Yeah, we spent at least 4 or 5 hours sitting there voting.
That's cool. I'm going to be on Constitution Committee this year. That's going to be pretty fun.
Would you be interested in see if we could try to do that again this year?
Oh, I'd want to do it again.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
That'd be pretty cool.
Well, I know. Just getting to know you guys, I've gone kind of backwards through this process of sort of being involved in county and citywide things for a while, and then getting to know younger people. And so it's been fun to sort of get to know. And the few interactions we've had, you and Sam Montoya and Chris, there's cool people around that I want to bring into the fold. And once again, where my issues are, and most of them are local, and I don't think at all fly in the face of anything y'all are about. And I do believe in a big tent. I do believe we have a good group. And they don't all have to agree on everything, especially nationally or internationally. I just see a group of cool young folks that I want to, have us be galvanized when issues come up. We can be a force.
Yeah, for me, the convention last year was definitely because I've been to a lot of political function across the country and stuff. I've gone to D.C. and gone to Baltimore, Florida, and all this stuff. And
this was like SFL or YAL type stuff?
I've done YAL, SFL, all that stuff. But going to the Capitol and being part of Young Republicans for this convention was one of the most interesting ones I've ever done because I didn't understand how much like diversity there was in like the Republican Party just here in Texas. Like, you know, we all are on the same team, but like everyone is very different. It was interesting getting to talk to people from, you know, across the state and how they were running their organization. Yeah. And there's a lot of disagreements amongst ourselves. Tons. It was that's why we spent like 5 hours voting on like constitution changes.
Yeah,
but
because everybody takes that stuff pretty seriously, and that's cool.
I remember how long like they were so hesitant about like putting Donald Trump as the nominee.
Yeah, I remember that. They were hesitant to like endorse him or something.
Yeah, they were tricky about the wording because like a lot of people in the room didn't like him. It was pretty funny. One of my favorite parts of it was when they were asking like, you know, whoever supported whatever candidate, you know, those of you that supported Jeb Bush, and there's like a bunch of cheers, and like Marco Rubio, tons of cheers, Ted Cruz, tons of cheers. Donald Trump was last, and like Donald Trump was always mine, but my guy.
Yours and like 10 other people?
Yeah. In like a room of like 300.
Yeah.
So I just yelled as loud as possible, and like everyone was just like, oh.
Well, you know, just a little bit of background on me. I was brought into this process when we were District 14 in 2002, right after 9/11, and it seemed like everything was just going haywire. And we happened to be in District 14, and I was like, dude, Ron Paul. Holy crap, this guy is not losing sight. He is so steadfast about defending liberty that we could survive anything as long as we have this much vigor and this much vigilance about defending liberty. And I've sort of just been on that ever since. And I've been a delegate at the county convention here and gotten involved in stuff, you know, like that. I was a nominations committee chair for Senate District 21. A few years back, and I hadn't been to state convention, but I've always been more focused on just making sure that the right people are in the right place here, and that doesn't necessarily mean lobbying candidates. It doesn't necessarily mean lobbying elected officials. It might mean fielding new candidates to replace bad elected officials, and so, you know, I think that I'd like to get a block together, sort of focused and centered around that.
Absolutely.
Any other things or?
No. Wish constitutional carry would be part of this special session, but it's not. Wish medical marijuana could be brought up again during this session, but it's not. So there's things that are going to have to be saved for another day, but I think that there's some good things to look forward to coming up here in the next couple weeks with a special session. So I'll get back with you, and we can tally those up later and count the victories and maybe see if there's places further, that need further work. I'll let y'all know.
Okay, sounds
All
cool.
Right. Good.
Let's get into what we have for international news then. Starting off in Europe. So the first thing that we wanted to talk about was Trump's visit to France for Bastille Day. You got the stuff, Bobby?
Yeah, so French President Macron, who we did not endorse him in the French president's race. But that being said, he won. He is the president of France. He invited Trump as president of the United States to come to their Bastille Day parade that they had in France. And it was on the 100th anniversary of the U.S. entry into World War I. And the Bastille Day celebration is always, for like the end of the war. And so they had a big parade through Paris, and Trump and Macron were both there. And this is something that every single president has done. That's something that presidents do yearly. But there's a lot of stuff that came out of this that's just really, really weird. For one, Trump and Macron had a handshake at the very, very end of it. And the handshake lasted for 25 seconds.
Oh, yeah, it's a fun video to watch.
Like, it's fun to watch, but, it doesn't look like it's anything out of the ordinary. It just looks like kind of like a long handshake. Like when you go to shake people's hands, sometimes you'll like hold onto their hand as you're talking to them, stuff like that. It wasn't too much out of the ordinary.
No, that's quite for a lot of people over there, when they are showing how glad they are to see you, they continue to shake your hand while they talk to you for like another minute.
Yeah.
So it's just a show of respect.
Yeah. And but some people in the US, that's not exactly a cultural norm here to do for like, maybe a little bit longer than usual, but not like 25 seconds as you're talking to people. I know some people still do it, some people don't, but it's not a cultural thing per se in the United States. So Chris Cizilla of CNN went on and he had a second-by-second analysis of the handshake. And I even posted this to my Facebook. I was like, yeah, this is what news has come to today. There's a second-by-second analysis of two world leaders shaking hands as they're talking about like whatever they're talking about. Couldn't even hear what they're talking about.
I'm sure he did way more thought into it than Macron did.
Yeah. But
you should see my Italian family. They'll go on for 5 minutes with their hand on you and then the other hand on your arm or on your shoulder while they're talking to you. And man, that's like after a couple of minutes, it gets a little much for me. But this is nothing. This is just people being nice.
But the second thing that came out of it that was apparently controversial,
super edgy.
Yeah, so edgy, is I guess this was when they first met. I'm assuming, I'm not entirely sure, but I would assume it's when they first met.
Yeah.
Was Macron's wife, Brigitte Macron. When Trump saw her, he said, "Oh, you look very nice. You're very in shape. Good for you."
Yeah.
And like, apparently that was like sexist or controversial.
Say
or
she's
something.
in good shape.
All he did was say, "Hey, you look very beautiful. You're in very good shape." I don't see how that's sexist. I mean, that's a good compliment, right?
But I don't know. That's probably gives like HuffPost enough to go on for the next month.
Yeah. Trump opening his mouth and saying anything triggers HuffPost.
But talking about the figure of a woman.
I mean, she is like older. So.
She's quite older.
How old was Macron? He's like probably in his 40s, and she's probably in her 60s. She was his school teacher.
Here, I'll look it up exactly, actually.
Yeah, because Brigitte Macron, she was his school teacher, and that's why there was a controversy.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we see where you two met. But
yeah, Brigitte Macron actually has like, I believe it's either a daughter or son that's only like a year younger than Emmanuel Macron.
Wow. Yeah.
But the handshake. Get back to the controversy.
Oh yeah, we need to get back to the controversy, the handshake. But,
okay. So, for a second, Brigitte Macron is 64 years old, and Emmanuel Macron is 39.
Well, there you go. You can do the math there yourself.
It's really weird.
Yeah, but
that's why I just thought it was kind of like a good backhanded compliment in a sense. I'm like, man, these are some good bands.
Yeah, but no, like.
It's whatever. You said Bastille Day is for the celebration of the end of the...
I thought that was for the celebration of the end of World War I.
No. Bastille Day is when, during the French Revolution, when the Parisians stormed the Bastille, which was the fortress where the king held all his prisoners and kept all the weapons. And once they stormed the Bastille, then they armed the revolution.
Well, then, I stand corrected. But what did the U.S. have to do with that, though? Did
they
have
weren't involved.
U.S. support?
No.
Huh. Interesting.
We were like barely a country then.
Well, we were inspired by it. I think that's going back to the British tradition versus the French tradition. Your people like Samuel Adams and Patrick Henry and Jefferson were very influenced by the French Revolution.
Well, the French Revolution happened after the American Revolution.
The French Revolution was inspired by the American Revolution.
Yeah.
But anyways, the U.S. and France were very close allies at that time.
Right.
Anyways.
They were, I think it was that they were the fans of people like, I want to say Rousseau.
Yeah, that
Montesquieu, more so than they were fans of like Burke.
Right.
So there was a British tradition and a French tradition, and I think that a lot of our founding fathers admired one or the other.
Anyways, so the Bastille Day celebration was on the 100th anniversary of the U.S. entering World War I, and Macron invited Trump. Trump went there for the day, and it was a good celebration. It was very, very nice.
Did you see when they were playing was it Daft Punk?
No, I didn't see that.
I
know that
with a band, like a marching band.
No, I know that at one point they were playing the U.S. national anthem, and a CNN anchor said they were playing the French national anthem.
Oh.
I love making fun
Fake
of
news strikes again.
Literally, she didn't recognize the U.S. national anthem. Like, you could hear it clearly, too. Anyways. But that was what Trump did last week, and it looked nice. It looked fun.
Yeah, it seemed like everything went good.
Let's get to the next story.
Yeah, so we got some stuff out of Germany. Looks like Germany has too many terrorist suspects to even keep track of. You got the stuff on this, Bobby?
Yes. Germany says they are finding it almost impossible to keep track of the 7,000 terrorist suspects they have across the country. And Richard Barrett, who is the head of MI6's counterterrorism, he's the one who made the claim. He said the authorities were struggling to cope with the number of live cases across the country. And they said, in addition to that, though you include all the local regions in Germany, they have about 7,000 live cases. As you can imagine, that's almost an impossible number to control. Now, like, seriously, Germany has 7,000 cases of, like,
7,000 terror suspects.
Yeah.
Wasn't the original army of ISIS numbering about 10,000?
10 to 20,000, I think.
And then the number of active Taliban in Afghanistan was around the same number. So you're talking now like an army that would basically be almost the size of the Taliban or ISIS is living inside Germany.
Well, think about it in this sense. Germany's armed forces is about 700 or 600,000.
Mm-hmm.
You know, after the last couple of years with migrants, they've brought in around maybe 4 or 5 million. 80% of those are fighting age males. They brought in more men than they have an army. So they imported an army pretty much. Like, if they wanted to, like, start their own Islamic nation in Germany, like, they could maybe win. So it's like, it's not, like, unheard of to where, like, oh yeah, 7,000 terrorist suspects. But yeah, this is what it's like to live in Germany. Glad I don't live there. Do you want to go into this Swedish stuff, Bobby?
Yes, I do. Okay. So, Enzo, this is a statistic-based question.
Yes. I probably know the answer.
Yes. What percentage of migrants to Sweden currently have a job?
Less than 1%. Less than
1%. Would you like to know the exact answer?
I do know the exact answer. I'm the one that put this up.
0.3%. 1/3 of 1% of every single migrant that has entered Sweden has a job. Of the 163,000 refugees, quote unquote, that entered the country last year, only 494 have found jobs. You'd have to triple that just to get to 1%.
Now, the population of Sweden is only around 10 million, and around 6 of that is native Swedish. So around 4 million people are of migrant background, immigrant background. And as we just said, 1/3 of a percentage have a job.
Yeah.
So, like, the 6 million is supporting the 4 million 100% in every single aspect of their lives. And the thing is, like, for these migrants, it's way better than the life they would have lived in Eritrea or Sudan or, like, Somalia. So, like, they don't see, like, a need to get a job. What's given to them is better than what they would have had in their life. So, like, they just see it as, like, weakness of the Swedes to, like, be able to give them all this stuff. They feel entitled to it, and that's the reason why they came to Sweden in the first place. You know, we're talking about incentives and immigration. Like, yeah, you give out the incentives Sweden has. Like, yeah, none of these immigrants are going to work.
Yeah, they said that there are so many immigrants that don't work. They said that by the end of 2017, foreigners are expected to make up 60% of all unemployed residents in Sweden.
Jesus. These numbers are like, you destroy your nation numbers. And, like, we've talked about this several times on the show. Like, there's predictions maybe 2025, 2030.
I've heard late 2020s to 2030.
Sweden will be downgraded to third world nation status. And this is, like, it used to be, like, peak, like, perfect Scandinavian model socialism.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, I always say on the show, like, I have a cousin that lives in Sweden, so I understand Sweden a lot better than most people. And, like, yeah, it used to be like a paradise. Like, Sweden's not, like, a crazy nice place to live in terms of, like, the weather.
Yeah.
But they made their society work. And now you import all these foreigners that don't even speak the language. Okay, you used to talk about the Scandinavian model of education, which is all highly, you know, touted. They have free college and whatnot. So this society where they've had generations of people go through free college, and now you're bringing in people that don't speak the language, that are low-skill, no-skill labor. and they have to compete in the same job market as native Swedes. Like, yeah, of course none of them are going to have jobs. It's insane. You think that people would, I don't know. But Sweden's a nut house.
I mean, a couple weeks ago we talked about how it was one of the Swedish people in their government said something like, yeah, we're never going to be able to go back to the old days of Sweden or something like that.
Yeah.
So Sweden's already lost as far as
I'm concerned. 100%.
There's no going
so
back.
Sad. So sad. We've had listeners from Sweden.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
We love you, Sweden. What's left of you?
I love what's left of Sweden as well. Let's go into this next one. So Turkey is looking to leave the Paris climate deal because U.S. payments won't be coming through.
Yeah, and that was kind of the whole point that Trump wanted to pull this out, was that, the Paris Climate Agreement had very little about actually helping the climate. It was all about funneling money out of the U.S. and into, like, third world countries and stuff. And that was one of the things that Trump, was talking about. And now that Trump's pulled out of it, or at least, pulled out of the non-binding portions of it, other countries now we start seeing. Turkey is starting to say, yeah, if we're not going to get paid, why are we in this agreement? So...
Yeah, it was a massive redistribution program. We're handicapping our industry so that other nations that, the third world is not as efficient as the United States. It's going to be more pollutant. You're not going to fix things by having these sort of deals. And, now people are falling into place because we decided not to do it.
I'm interested to see, Trump himself, he said he wanted to renegotiate it. So... I'm wondering just what will happen if we do renegotiate. Will countries like Turkey still want to stay in it once they realize that those payments still won't be going through? Because Trump's not going to negotiate it to the point where it's like the same thing's happening.
Yeah.
I seriously doubt they're going to want to join it.
Yeah. Let's get in the last thing here for Europe. So
can I just say one thing, though?
Yeah.
As somebody who has been a detractor in the past, I was very, very pleased with how Trump handled himself. And how he handled himself, yes, not only in Paris, but also in Poland. So I just wanted to give that credit where credit is due for somebody who's been very critical in the past.
Oh, yeah, I love what Trump did in Poland. That was
he's a very good, he's good at pushing our interests internationally way better than we've had it in a long time.
Yeah.
So... the last thing that we wanted to get into as far as Europe was some refugees in Greece. They burned down their refugee camp in protest of the living conditions there. You got the stuff on that, Bobby?
Yeah, so there was a large refugee camp located on the Greek island of Lesbos, and it was set on fire during a protest staged by the migrants and refugees that were living at the facility. They were expressing their discontent with the poor living conditions at the center. So, I guess they didn't like it and just burn it down.
That's like a normal response to someone running away from a war zone.
Yeah. So
once you're in safety and you're in a facility that can house you, you burn it down if it's not good enough.
Yeah. I mean, now where are they living? I don't know.
Lesbos is the biggest receiver of refugees as far as Greece goes. But you look at Greece in general, the country's in complete collapse. What do they expect?
Not only did they light it on fire, they also prevented the local police and fire departments from reaching the scene by barring them from entering the camp and throwing stones at them.
These people are the worst.
The firefighters were literally forced to retreat, although there was no major injuries besides a couple of bruises and stuff. But seriously though, they said that one camp hosted more than 14,000 migrants and refugees.
They just burned it down.
And they just burned the thing down.
So just war game this. What happens if people like Antifa and migrants like these have their way in Europe?
No, they'll just destroy things.
It's just going to be post-apocalyptic mayhem.
They already do destroy things. I mean, they're running trucks through crowds, and Antifa. You look at what they were doing last week in Hamburg. They burned down that entire city. I mean, yeah. We were talking about this last week on the show. If you didn't have the anti-globalism...
if you didn't have a sign at the front of your business that said that you were anti-G20, then they would loot your business.
Yeah.
and break all your windows and stuff.
Yeah, they were looting places. There's videos of them just going to liquor stores and taking, because they want to party, and they burned down an IKEA, and like there was 500 German officers that were injured in the riots last week. And it's just like the Antifa, they feel like they're fighting like globalism because they're anarcho-communists or whatever, and it's just like they have the same exact political beliefs as most of the people in the G20 besides Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Even like even like the police officers have the same political leanings as them, and they still like fight for no reason because they feel like they got to fight the system even though the system's on their side.
Yeah, that's true.
Like
especially a lot of those civil servants, sanitation workers, all the people who clean up after them, the cops, people on fixed incomes, people hoping to have a pension. It's just ridiculous. It was sad to see, what happened there in the G20, and especially with people like, I don't know, Luke Rudkowski. This guy was a journalist who actually has been challenging the establishment, and he was considered an enemy by all these people. It's just insane, There's people who, in this country even, think that they're part of some resistance because they parrot what, the Wall Street Journal says or Forbes magazine says. If they're saying it and you're just parroting it, you might want to check yourself and whether or not you really think you're anti-establishment or resistance or something.
It's fun to mess with people, around that. Like the Bernie people are always the most fun to do that too, because they talk about fighting the corporations, but they also always support open borders. So I say to them like, you support the immigration policy that the corporations want. Like I don't.
Yeah.
As a Trump supporter.
Yeah. And some of them might talk a big game about breaking up the banks, but I think what they just want is more crumbs from the table. And so they think they're pretty radical because they're like, oh, well, Hillary wants 5 crumbs from the table, but we want 8 crumbs from the table. Real radical.
Yeah. Should we go into the Africa stuff that we have, Bobby?
Yeah. So there's one story we have out of Africa. Don't worry about that. There's one story we have out of Africa where French President Macron, who we were talking about earlier, apparently he made some comments that were...
about Africa.
Africa.
He didn't make the comments in Africa.
Yeah. They were not too well liked by some people. But he said that Africa's real problems are their demographics, and their continent's true challenges are civilizational, including failed states, shaky democracies, trafficking, extremism, and population growth. To which he later said that he pointed out where African women need to stop having 7 or 8 children each.
Are you sure they didn't elect Le Pen over there?
Yeah, I know. It's like they got secret Hitler. It's amazing.
I mean, he's not wrong. Well, we've looked at the statistics. Africa is supposed to have, 4 billion people by 2100?
Well, currently it's about 1.2 billion people live in Africa. It's predicted to double by around 2040, 2045. But it's predicted by the end of the century that they're going to break 4 billion people in Africa, which will be it'll be like half the population of the world when that happens. So like Africa, who's going to feel all these people? I don't know.
I mean,
are they all just going to immigrate to Europe or something?
Yeah, they're going to have to.
No,
you look at the long run, Europe's gone.
Yeah, pretty much. But the dude's not wrong. They do need to address this demographic problem. I mean, look at the growth of the population of Nigeria. They're predicted by 2030 or 40 to be, larger population-wise than the United States. Nigeria.
Here's the thing, is that I'm not going to sit here and say that there is some sort of problem of too many black people running around. I think what you have is a problem of how do these people sustain themselves?
Yeah.
How is abundance going to be able to reach them? How are they going to be able to own, in some cases, the very ground they live on?
These are already like super poor countries. Like they
Yeah.
can't handle these kind of numbers. They can't even handle the numbers they got.
Yeah.
Which is why they're coming to Europe in like the boatloads. But
Yeah, I know. I wanted to make that clear because I think some people would take that argument in completely the wrong way, and I don't think that's how it was meant. It just came across rather provocatively from somebody who you thought would have never dared
to say anything of the sorts.
Mentioned anything in that realm.
It's interesting. I mean, I've seen the whole thing about overpopulation, underpopulation stuff is always interesting because the narratives always get brought up and then put back away or whatnot. But it's just like they talk about we need to like stop having children so that we can fight climate change.
Right.
But then they say that like we have a too low of a replacement rate, so we need immigrants.
Yes.
And then like
they're really confused about that. I mean, the social engineers change their mind about that every 30 years, as they do with global temperatures and stuff like that.
Yeah, like
they used to be afraid of a new ice age. Now they're afraid of everything melting, and just like they were afraid of underpopulation, now they're afraid of overpopulation.
Or just like if humans have such a profound impact on the climate, wouldn't like a huge African population be bad for the climate, especially since like they use very inefficient forms of energy in Africa. But then like if you bring that up, like you're a racist. Like that's and like you're not allowed to like question African demographics at all because like you're from a privileged country or whatever.
Yeah.
The viewpoints on this stuff is always strange. It's just like kind of reminds me of, like when the Sierra Club used to be against like immigration and stuff because like they understood that more people in the country is gonna like increase the
labor unions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think change. A lot of things. It's interesting to see what's in vogue every now and then, or what people try to make as coded racism or something like that. Like I wish to God some of these, places in the Congo, for instance, could own these mines and own these rare earth minerals that could build them these giant solar walls or whatever. You know what I mean? Or buy the cell phones that they, mine all these rare earth metals to make.
Yeah, I mean, Africa has some of the. Africa has like more natural resources than like anywhere else on the planet. I mean, you look at that entire continent; it's rich and ripe with natural resources, and they're not able to harvest it for themselves.
They can't even feed themselves.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, how is that even possible?
I think what you have to do. The first thing you have to do, especially if you're talking to liberals, is own the European imperialist part. You say yes, there is a history of that there, and then you go on to talk about all the myriad of other things that have presented them with challenges to development, and in the very same light, some of the legacy of imperialism that has been left there that are the reason they have like a railroad in the Congo, or are the reason they have a non-Islamic court system in Algeria. So it's a mixed bag, and you have to address all of it, warts and all. And there's so many developmental challenges there that cannot all be just passed off as the legacy of imperialism.
Yeah.
It's too large a place. It's so much going on there that it's
a very unnuanced way just to chalk everything up to what happened like over 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Let's get into the last stuff with the Middle East here, and then we can get out of here.
Okay. Well, this second to last story that we're going to have is some very, very good news coming out of Afghanistan. Now, before I mention it, we will mention that I think this was actually a couple weeks ago now. The leader of ISIS, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, was killed by a Russian...
It was like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. He was killed by a Russian airstrike in, I believe, Syria or Iraq.
Go Russia!
Yeah. But now, the leader of ISIS in Afghanistan, whose name is Abu Sayyed, he was killed in a U.S. airstrike. on July 11th. We just got the information out. So that means in the last month, 2 of ISIS's top leaders have been killed in airstrikes.
Yeah.
So,
as the Islamic State's collapsing.
Yeah, and we're going to have the last stories about that as well. They said that he was killed by a U.S. drone, even though the Pentagon initially described him as being killed in a raid. But it was actually by a drone strike. So our drones over there are doing really good. It's a success in trying to defeat ISIS in Afghanistan. And he's actually the 3rd ISIS leader of Afghanistan that's been killed in the last year. So I guess that means we got to go after the next guy now. But
let's get into the last one that we have here, though.
And the last story, which is very, very similar, is, as you said, ISIS is kind of collapsing right now. And the Syrian...
Especially if you don't remember, we talked about this last week in the show, Mosul, the largest city in Iraq that was controlled by the Islamic State, was liberated last week.
Yeah, and that ended like a 9-month fight.
Yeah.
But ISIS's capital is in Raqqa right now, which is in northern Iraq. Or is it in southern
Syria?
Syria. It's in northern Syria.
Northern Syria, my mistake. But that's now that's now ISIS's, that's pretty much like their final huge stronghold. And a lot of their forces have been pushed back into the city, and they're actually burning all the oil wells that are in the, outside the city as they're being pushed back, just so that no one else has access to it. And that's because of heavy Russian airstrikes as well as the Syrian army itself. That's been going by, and the Syrian army's actually been able to control some of those oil wells in the oil fields.
They've entered some of the city of Raqqa.
Yeah, so it looks like ISIS may be done within the next 6 months or so.
Which now brings up to question what happens afterwards.
Yeah.
What do you do with everyone? Who's going to be in control?
I hope to God that we don't do some crazy ass thing to Assad's forces in the meantime. We should just let Russia and Syria and Hezbollah kick their ass.
That's what I'd like to see. I mean, I don't know how many civilians are still left living in the city of Raqqa right now, but
there's still hundreds of thousands, I believe.
I would guess. But,
and the Kurds up north have a very good stronghold too. They have a very good army there, and have done a lot of work, and I think they deserve. I think they should get a lot more autonomy out of this. I don't know if Turkey's going to allow it, but I hope they can parlay this into a lot of autonomy.
I hope so. But just in general, ISIS is being pushed back. The only thing they have left now is their capital, and I mean that's going to be one hell of a fight. I'll tell you that.
But also, ISIS is international.
True.
Once you destroy the Islamic State itself, it doesn't mean ISIS is dead.
No.
ISIS has client members all across the world.
It's kind of an ideology.
Yeah. So now it's a whole new game with ISIS.
I think it's like the Muslim Antifa. Like the people who don't just destroy stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when I think about what they were doing and setting fire to everything and talking about Raqqa, it kind of reminded me of Hamburg. You know what I mean? It's just like, there's these assholes in every society.
Well, and Islam, as the big problem with terrorism, ISIS was a part of Al-Qaeda, and there's been the huge feud between ISIS and Al-Qaeda now ever since the Islamic State declared we're actually the supreme ones in power of all Muslims, so you should listen to us. So now it does change the situation of ISIS has been appealing to so many people, and so many people have sworn allegiance to ISIS all across the world. But will they still have that pull now once they don't even have a state? Who knows? Is another terrorist group going to come out of the woodworks? Because these movements, they just come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
ISIS, as we were saying before, they just came out of nowhere, a small group of dudes, and they started conquering everything.
Yeah, it's just... I'm sorry, guys. I don't mean to get all paranoid and go Jesse Ventura on you. But they always seem to do it with freaking brand spanking new looking Israeli and American and Saudi weapons and vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how they just magically come out of nowhere. And I'm tired of it. I'm so tired of it.
I mean, at this point, I I'd put an ultimatum on the city of Raqqa. Say, get out, or we're just gonna firebomb the whole thing.
What is this, Dresden?
Yeah.
and ISIS once and for all. Push them back into the city and then just destroy it.
And then put an ultimatum on the Saudis.
Yes.
If you keep funding this stuff, we're no longer going to touch the glowing orb with you.
Oh, I like the glowing orb.
The Middle East will just never be fixed. It's so frustrating.
I think read Reagan's diaries. He had some good insights on that. He saw the writing on the wall, and he knew how irrational it was. And he did turn tail and run. And he's probably saved us a lot of money and heartache in the 80s because of it after our barracks were bombed in Beirut.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks like the fighting with ISIS is going to be coming to a close pretty soon, which is good. But we have to see what happens next.
Oh, you never know. I mean, there's going to be these things around here, people throwing acid on people and stuff like that. These things are going to keep happening, not necessarily taking control of a country, but these things, they're just going to claim ISIS, and it's just going to be this this ideology that very, very sick people are going to buy into,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But with that, we have no other stories to go through the week. I want to thank you, Cameron, for coming on.
Thank you again for having me on. It's becoming fun, guys, and I hope we can do it again soon.
Oh, it's always fun. Should we shill for stuff?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, once again, if you would like to donate to the show, it will help us immensely. We're looking to invest in some new microphones pretty soon and some other endeavors. You can help the show out through paypal.me/Trump Republic Radio, capital T, capital R, capital R. That's also in the description for the episode. You can contact the show at TrumpRepublicRadio@gmail.com. If you want to tell us how we're doing, you want to come up with an idea, if you want to come on a show or something, I don't know. Reach out to us.
And Hayes, I want you to just, real quick, can I shill?
Yeah.
Hill Country Young Republicans. Look us up on Facebook, Hill Country Young Republicans. We got some good stuff coming up this summer.
Yeah.
We'll put that in the description as well.
Thanks.
And with that, that's another episode of Trump Republic Radio. Thanks for listening.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Later.